happen. Later, north to Alberta. Kerwin wants to ring a few up today, and he's got the people. Eric is awesome. He's all league and all purpose. The defense is deadly. Pless and company will answer the challenge today. Danny hopes to work some playoff magic. Remember last year? Corey does. Watch for some inspired play from the Catalyst. And if the defense denies, watch for a great one. The last time I was this excited was that magic Christmas morning when I got my first Barbie. Once again today, the road to the Grey Cup stops at points north and south, and this is where we start at the Alamo Dome in the deep south of Texas, where the San Antonio Texans try to take advantage of home field against Birmingham in their South semifinal. Then in about 3 hours, we'll travel north to Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton. Hello and welcome to Semifinal Sunday on the CFL on CBC. I'm Scott Oak in Edmonton, where in about 3 hours the Eskimos and BC Lions clash. That's just as soon as the Texans and Barracudas are done at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. At stake there is a berth in the South Division Final against Baltimore. Standing by now at the Alamo Dome is Mark Lee. Let's bring him in. Mark, the Texans have played some fine football there this season.
Indeed, they do it upright inside the Alamo Dome, Scott. Deep in the cradle of Texas, this is historic San Antonio, the birthplace of the Lone Star State, and a fitting place for the first All-American playoff game in the CFL. It's a rematch of the Texans and Barracudas. Last week's final regular season game, they put up 90 points in that game, won by the Texans 48-42. There was some speculation yesterday that Matt Dunnigan might be in uniform for the Barracudas. Not to be. You see his right hand still bound in a cast 2 weeks after having surgery to repair a broken index finger on his passing hand. He'll be on the sidelines today giving advice and inspiration in his street clothes. And so, Chris Cuthbert and James Curry, the leadership of the Cudas falls on the rookie, Kelvin Simmons, who made his pro football debut last week with 3 rushing TDs and 2 passing TDs against the Texans.
Real sharp contrast in the starting quarterbacks. You got the youngster, the 25-year-old Simmons, and then the veteran, 33 years of age, David Archer. Second half of the year, he was 8-1. The offense averaged over 40 points. He was the top-rated passing efficiency quarterback this year. And Archer had his best game of the season last week against the Cudas. How about this guy, though? Nobody rushed for more yards against San Antonio than Kelvin Simmons, not even Mike Pringle. And he also chipped in with 250 yards passing and a pair of touchdowns. Could have another shootout today.
But this game could be determined on the defensive side of the football. And for Birmingham, you have Angelo Snipes. This season, he was 3rd in the league in quarterback sacks. They only got to Archer one time last week. They have to be more efficient this afternoon. But for Birmingham, San Antonio, Maurice Miller, the middle linebacker, is the big guy for them. In this run-and-shoot offense that Birmingham runs, you need a lot of speed mobility from your linebackers. Maurice Miller possesses that.
These two teams split their regular season games. Care to call this one, James?
No, I'm not a betting man.
I'll tell you, it's too close to call as far as we're concerned. Take a look at the tail of the statistics. In virtually every category, right on down the list, they are dead even, so it's a pick-em, and we dare say you won't need any salsa to spice up this one. Let's go back to Scott Oak in Calgary.
All right, Mark. David Archer, one of only 3 quarterbacks ever to throw for 6,000 yards in a single season. One of the others, Kent Austin, it was not with the Argos this past season, but with Saskatchewan in '92. We welcome Kent back as our game day analyst. Kent, San Antonio with David Archer, Birmingham without Matt Dunnigan. That's a big storyline in that game.
Well, certainly it's hard for Birmingham to go into the playoffs without their starting quarterback. On the other side, David Archer's had a tremendous season. 108 passing efficiency rating is remarkable.
Now, waiting for either the Texans or Barracudas in the South Division Final are the Baltimore Stallions, who yesterday dispatched the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on the strength of a 200-yard-plus rushing game by Mike Pringle. He also got 2 touchdowns in a 36-21 victory. Kent, the Bombers were just outmuscled.
Physically, Baltimore was just stronger than Winnipeg yesterday, and it showed over the course of 4 quarters.
I am really looking forward to this Eskimo Lions rematch here at Commonwealth Stadium later today. It's a rematch of the semifinal that you and the Lions won last year en route to the Grey Cup, and there's no reason to think that this will be anything other than a tough game.
I think it's a great matchup. 2 teams that are evenly matched up. I think that the difference will be turnovers in this ballgame. Whoever gets the turnovers on the plus side, I think, will win this ballgame.
And here the Eskimos and Lions are playing for the right to go against the Calgary Stampeders in the North Final. Yesterday, Calgary got off to a rough start but recovered nicely on the strength of good defense in the second half. Marvin Coleman picked off 2 Mike Kerrigan passes, returned both for touchdowns. The Stamps won 30-13. Kent, if ever there was a day the Stamps could have been had, it was yesterday, but instead they're now a game away from the Grey Cup.
6 turnovers in one ball game. I don't think I've ever seen with a Calgary team in the last 4 or 5 years, and I don't think you're going to see it again in the playoffs. So certainly Hamilton's chance came in and went yesterday.
All right, Kent, we'll check in with you throughout the day. And coming up at halftime on our Chrysler Canada halftime report today, we'll set the stage for the North semifinal here in Edmonton. Danny McManus dreams of a miracle like one of the ones he pulled off in the playoffs last year for the BC Lions en route to the Cup. And Eric Blunt's delighted to be in his first playoffs with the Eskimos after leading them on the ground in the regular season. We'll hear from both McManus and Blunt, and we'll pick apart the first half of the Birmingham-San Antonio semifinal at the Alamo Dome, where I'm betting it's clear and toasty warm, and if I had my way, I would order this roof open, but it's not possible. Let's go back to Mark Lee in San Antonio.
Well, Scott, it's high noon in Texas, a shootout last week, and whichever team is left standing after 60 minutes today will move on to Baltimore. As you mentioned, perfect weather conditions, of course, but there is some controversy about the music. The noise today, apparently San Antonio used it to their advantage and Birmingham's disadvantage last week. We'll see if that's a factor as the game wears on. We're underway with Matt Cody returning the football and being met immediately. Great downfield hustle by Heath Sherman, just a 14-yard kickoff return for the Barracudas. And there is the youngster, Kelvin Simmons, only his second pro start. He was cut by this team earlier this year, but now the trigger man in the run and shoot, which was the second best passing offense in the league this year. He's an Alabama phenom. He led his high school team to the all-state title, went on to Alabama, was ruled academically ineligible, so he moved on to Troy State, where he had a great Division II career, and now the promise of being a great CFL quarterback. First play from scrimmage, and he guns it over the middle. There's Eddie Britton for a first down at the 45. Britton, the former Calgary Stampeder, who had a touchdown last week.
Well, actually, both of those players are former Stampeders, Simmons as well as Britton, but this is a good start for Simmons. People thought that he may not be able to duplicate the performance he had last week as we look at the offensive line. Freddie Childers, big guy at guard position. Marcus Grant, 1,500 yards this year in his rookie season in receiving yardage.
First down, won't see them run a lot today, but the give to keep Woodside closed down right at the line of scrimmage. Just 169 rushing plays for Birmingham this season. And Woodside, their leading rusher, but it was Simmons last week that really gave San Antonio fits with his running ability.
Well, he's very quick and elusive, and he was really pulling the ball down quick. He actually had 8 designated run plays. The rest were just athletic ability in taking off.
So second down and 10 for Simmons, who stands in, throws, and threads the needle. That's Ted Long breaking a tackle. And Long down inside the 40-yard line of San Antonio with a big gainer. Tommy Smith finally pulled him down.
First down, Birmingham.
27-yard pickup.
I think what you have to be impressed with right off the bat with Simmons is his ability to stand in the pocket and read the coverage. He's patient, he's not pressing the ball, and he's finding his open receivers in the zone coverage of San Antonio and has picked up nice yardage on the 2 pass plays.
Barracudas operate under the no-huddle offense, and Simmons will call the signals at the line. First and 10, swings it out left side. Short gain for Woodside as Bobby Humphrey moved up from his quarterback position to make the stop. The San Antonio Texans on defense were 4th in most categories this year. James King, the 3-year Saskatchewan Rough Rider on that defensive line. James talked about Maurice Miller with his 3 touchdowns this year, and he really made a difference when he came back. Grady Cavness Jr. won himself a job in the secondary this year. Second and long, and this one over the head of Ted Long, closest man to it. Incomplete. But the rookie Simmons showed you something on the first drive that he's for real.
Well, he is. He's a nice, polished young quarterback, but one of the problems he does have, and that's when he throws the ball deep. He actually brings it more sidearm when he throws it deep, and the ball has a tendency to carry. The short passes underneath 15 yards, he's very accurate.
So it's a field goal situation for San Antonio. Or for Birmingham, they won the first game 38-28 in Birmingham and lost here 48-42 last week. This from 45 yards out, which is at about the outer limit for Luis Zendejas. Not this time, though. Zendejas had plenty on that and opens the scoring here. 2 minutes, 51 seconds in to this. South Semi and Jack Pardee's teams on top.
The CFL on CBC. Brought to you by Ford of Canada, makers of the new 1996 Ford Taurus.
We're at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. The first ever All-American playoff game in the CFL. There's Jack Pardee, 18 years as a head coach. He was the NFL Coach of the Year in '93. And before taking the job in Birmingham, he called this man, Case Stevenson, for counsel. Stevenson gave the league a ringing endorsement, and now they're facing each other opposite sides of the field today in the first ever U.S. playoff game in the Canadian Football League. Barracudas with a 3-0 lead, and Zendejas has it on the tee. Set to kick it off to Marcus Gates or Kenny Wilhite, and Gates had a 93-yard kickoff return against Birmingham last week, so they go to Wilhite, and we've seen good kick coverage at either end of the field.
Well, one of the big pluses for San Antonio this year has been their great kick return teams. The average field position has been up close to the 50-yard line, and this is not a place where they're accustomed to starting drives, so David Archer is really going to have to work in his initial series.
Mentioned the highest rated quarterback in passing efficiency this year, and he led the second most explosive offense. They scored 1 point less than the Calgary Stampeders on the season. And Archer particularly effective in the second half of the year. He was bothered by a hamstring problem in the first half. And the give to Mike Saunders, the former Saskatchewan Roughrider. Good pursuit, though, by the Birmingham defense. It's a quick defense, and that's Mark Ledbetter, who once played for San Antonio in the World League.
Well, this defense is much like the one we saw yesterday in Baltimore.
The offensive set, Mike Kislak, a 3-year man and the top offensive lineman. In fact, Archer says this is the best offensive line he's ever played behind. Mike Saunders will be a key man in the offensive attack, both running and catching the football this afternoon. 2nd down and 6, and Archer has Mark Stock in the flat, and Stock will have a first down at the 42-yard line. Eddie Davis, who did not play last week because of an ankle problem, makes the tackle.
Well, the defense for Birmingham this afternoon is one of those defenses that's built on speed also. This is the defense that starts 7 defensive backs also. They play a couple in the linebacker position. But San Antonio has to throw the ball on time. The 3- and 5-step drops for Archer, and he can be very effective in doing that this afternoon.
Well, Stock was a favorite receiver last week. 5 catches, 120 yards, and now they go to Dave Gamble, and he has it at the 47. That's a gain of 6. Gamble, the only receiver back in the set this year for David Archer from a year ago. They had a complete overhaul of their receiving core, and Archer feels he's got a lot better weapons this season. Here's the defense for the Barracudas. Some familiar names. Angelo Snipes, the sniper and All-Canadian, and he was 3rd in the league in sacks. Shante Peoples was 4th. And at linebacker, watch Jimmy Reed is 5'8", 196 pounds, and he's playing middle linebacker. That one was on the carpet. Joe Kralik incomplete on 2nd and 6, and it'll be 3rd down.
Well, that time Archer trying to throw the slip screen and just threw the ball short, threw it in the ground, but excellent defense by Birmingham, hustling over and getting there just in case it had been caught. They would have stopped him short of the first down.
And so Todd Jordan comes on. And Anthony Drawhorn has dropped deep for the Barracudas. Birmingham not particularly effective this year in punt or kick returns. And their longest punt return this season has been 33 yards. Not a great snap. And the bouncing snap fielded by Jordan, not a long kick. Drawhorn fields it, and he'll get the 5-yard, no yards penalty.
Flag down.
Just a 35-yard kick, a 2-yard return by Drawhorn. Birmingham and San Antonio in the first of a doubleheader this afternoon. And This should be a great one. The defending Grey Cup champions go back into Edmonton where they started their Grey Cup role a year ago.
Well, that's going to be an outstanding game, BC at Edmonton this afternoon. And you know those guys up in Edmonton are going to be fired up after losing that heartbreaker on that Gordon interception at the last moment when it looked like they were going to have the game-clinching touchdown.
Kelvin Simmons starts his second series as quarterback. Mentioned he was in the Calgary Stampeders camp, and he was beaten out for the third-string job last year by Jeff Garcia. Simmons delivers it high, and it's picked up. That's Grady Cavness with the interception. And Cavness following the blockers, and it's Kelvin Simmons in on the tackle. But this game just 5 minutes, 45 seconds old, and Cavness has the first big play, an interception, and a 35-yard return.
Well, that's Simmons' first interception that he's thrown. Last week he didn't have a turnover, but the ball goes right through his receiver's hands. But one of the things, he throws sidearm, and the nose gets up on the ball, and it carries. But great defense by Cavness, and he had a caravan in front of him, and he got down to this 14-yard line.
The intended receiver was Dilius Morris, but Cavness hauls it in. He had 3 interceptions during the regular season, including one against the Birmingham Barracudas. So first down for Archer. And the Texans inside the 15, and the give right up the middle to Mike Saunders, their leading rusher. And he's finally brought down at the 7. Saunders with over 1,000 yards this season and rushing once again.
This is where you gauge good football teams. When you get a defensive turnover and you give your offense great field position, they have to be able to capitalize and put points on the scoreboard. San Antonio is in a prime position right now to get the first major of the game if they can. It's going to put a lot of pressure on Simmons as the game wears on.
Second down and 4. And this time Heath Sherman pounding near the goal line. Texans are signaling touchdown, but the officials have yet not giving the signal. And it'll be first and goal at the 1. Big Heath Sherman, the former Philadelphia Eagle, who joined this team when Troy Mills went down.
With just straight power running up front, but that's one of the pluses for San Antonio is that this offensive line has been intact most of the season. Right in the middle, those 3 big horses, Kislak, Este, and Muhlenberg, have been there all year long, and they've really rounded out into an excellent offensive front.
So first and goal for the Texans. Third best rushing team in the CFL. Sherman the setback, but Archer will keep, and David Archer should be in for the score, and now the touchdown signal given.
The San Antonio Texans did what they needed to do. They got the turnover, and they got the points on the scoreboard. David Archer kept the ball on the ground, played power football, and was able to march it in for their first major of the afternoon.
And the Texans ran right at Birmingham after the interception by Grady Cavness. Roman Anderson on to add the extra point. And the leading scorer in the Canadian Football League this year makes it a 7-3 lead as the Texans capitalize on the first turnover of the game. Grady Cavness with the interception, and David Archer finished off the scoring drive, and the San Antonio Texans have the lead. Grady's dad, former Winnipeg Blue Bomber and BC Lion, and here's how the drive was finished.
Well, if you're going to play power football, you might as well give it to your biggest running back, and that's David Archer. And that time the offensive line did a good job of getting the surge up front, and he just rolled right into the end zone for the initial major.
First meeting between these two teams, Birmingham did not commit a turnover. The first one here was a costly one. Matt Cody had some trouble. Now finds a little room up the sidelines, got to the 30 before he's knocked back. Leonard Nelson among the wave of tacklers, and a 13-yard return for Cody. So Maurice Miller leads the defense out. Kelvin Simmons with the challenge, bouncing back off the interception.
It's really going to be a test for the young quarterback coming out right now because he hasn't been faced coming back on the field after committing a turnover, and now it's going to be very important to see how he settles himself. Will he go back to a short passing game, or will he continue trying to throw it long?
Interesting to see if he starts to run the football as he did last week. 4 receivers right side. A little bit of pressure on. Delivers the ball high, incomplete. Was looking for Marcus Grant, the leading receiver in the South this year. And that one sailed a little high.
One of the things that he's doing, Chris, he's only about 5'9", and when you get the pass rush up in his face, he has a hard time seeing over the top, and that's why he's having a problem getting the ball on the line to his receivers, and you see a lot of loft in his passes.
You're also seeing here, this is how Birmingham operates. No huddle. He'll call signals out of the shotgun formation, and here in San Antonio, they'll try and make as much noise as possible to disrupt the quarterback. He just dumps it off. Woodside brought it in, but couldn't maintain his feet. At the 37-yard line, he'll be at least 3 yards short of the first down.
Looked like almost he was anticipating being hit when he made the reception, but when you're in the open field, Woodside, he has to keep his balance and pick up the first down. You can't fall down in open field with no one around you.
Good look at the big chill, Freddie Childress.
Look more like a freezer.
Looks listed at 6'4", 352 pounds.
Looks like he's listing forward, though.
Woodside unhappy. And Scott Player, who's had a fine year punting and enjoyed the friendly confines of the Alamo Dome last week. He averaged 49.7 yards a punt. Rush was on, but Player got it away. Taken by Wilhite. And great coverage on the play.
That's something you can expect from both of these teams this afternoon, is great downfield coverage on kicks. A lot of speed. They have great athletes on both sides of the ball, and if you can get the hang time, you're going to really limit the return. And Player was very fortunate to be able to get this one away. Came within an eyelash of being blocked.
Charles Franks, the safety, almost got to Scott Player. Last week it was Birmingham with a block punt. There's Mike Saunders, who was 3rd in the league in yards from scrimmage this season.
He was also 3rd in the league in rushing touchdowns. Make that total touchdown score.
And his role even more important with the injury to Troy Mills. Play action, and Archer guns over the middle. Mark stops, and he will score. Archer to stop. Touchdown, San Antonio, 75 yards.
The big play offensively that San Antonio was looking for. They caught him sleeping in the zone. Stock was able to hit the seam, the post route. Archer put it on the money. He was off to the races. Touchdown, San Antonio.
The Texas Tech band is here, and the former sprinter from VMI scores the touchdown. San Antonio without a 1,000-yard receiver this year, but Stock was close. 949 yards and 75 more on that play. And Roman Anderson back in for the extra point. And with 5:41 to go in the first quarter, David Archer has an early hot hand, 3 for 4, 92 yards. He scored 1 and passed for 1, and it's 14-3 Texans. Lightning quick drive, 1 play, 75 yards.
What sold the touchdown was the play fake, the David Archer to Sanders, and it made the defense bite. They had no underneath support. As we roll through right here, watch the play fake and freeze. Right here, the linebacker's in the middle. There's no help underneath, and that's where Archer goes. Stock will run the slant route. It's wide open, no underneath support, and the post, touchdown the result.
That was a big key last week for San Antonio. 278 yards receiving for the 2 inside men, Stock and Hess, and they're off and running again. Here's Matt Cody. And again, pretty tough sledding down there. Brett Besh leading the tacklers, and a 17-yard kickoff return. And suddenly, the rookie Kelvin Simmons finds himself 11 points down, and we haven't played 10 minutes.
Well, you get a look at his eyes right there. He doesn't have the confidence now that he started the game with. He's a little more nervous at this point because he's had the crucial turnovers. He hasn't been able to generate any more first downs, and now the pressure's on his back, trailing 14-3.
The offensive coordinator, John Jenkins, Real University of Houston connection here. He was a head coach at Houston, so was Jack Pardee, where they operated the run and shoot. Marcus Grant, a receiver there, so was Jason Phillips. And here's Matt Cody. And Cody across the 35 to the 37.
56
as Simmons goes back to the short routes to try and get this offense going.
Well, that's what he has to do. The short passes are very safe and comfortable passes for him. As you see Simmons here being blocked, but he's able to ward off the blocker and make the tackle on the receiver. But Jason Simmons right now, this is the most critical point of the game for him, is that Kelvin Simmons, is that he has to complete some passes in sequence.
It's second and short. Less than a yard to go. The option toss to Woodside, and he may not have got back to the line of scrimmage. Charles Franks the safety, Maurice Miller with the tackle.
Well, San Antonio is doing all the right things right now defensively as they come across and they stop Simmons before he has an opportunity to pressure the corner. And that's the way that you stop the veer. You do not allow the quarterback to get outside where he has the threat to turn the corner on you.
And now it's third down and the first gamble of the game. And I guess this is one disadvantage for a run and shoot team. They don't run an awful lot, and it's 3rd and 1.
Well, you have a lot of big offensive linemen that are not accustomed to getting their noses leaning forward and rooting people out. They're accustomed to pass blocking.
But they're going for it from their own 36. Simmons, quick surge. Needed a full yard. Jack Pardee anxious on the sidelines.
Well, from this point, looks like he picked it up, and that was a very important play for Birmingham because Simmons needs to rebuild his confidence, and right here is very critical. Like I said, he needed to pick up a series of first downs. That's his second. Can he pick up a couple of more?
Folks in BC might remember this name as well. He spent some time in both the camps of the Lions and Stampeders. First down, looking for his favorite receiver, Marcus Grant with the catch. Malcolm Frank, the tackle. And he's had a fine year for San Antonio, their best cover man, but Marcus Grant's been quite a story.
Marcus Grant is an outstanding story. Only second to Dave Sapunjas in total yardage this year, 1559, but to come in and do this as a rookie to accumulate this type of yardage working in the CFL is an outstanding job. Possibly should have got the nominee for Rookie of the Year in the South.
Tough call against Chris Wright, the outstanding punt returner of the Baltimore Stallions. 2nd and 2, and Simmons, not much there again. Tommy Smith, the linebacker there.
Last week they found some success in running the veer, keeping the ball in Simmons' hands, but I think the adjustments that San Antonio had an opportunity to make over the past week where they've recognized the run options that Simmons wants to execute, and they've been able to defend them very well. The penetration up front by the defensive lineman has been the key, and they've gotten across the line of scrimmage.
Well, we talked about their rushing success last week, a season high, 147 yards. They have 4 rushes for 2 yards so far today. Punt bouncing to Gates. That's a free football, and Marcus Gates trapped inside his 15-yard line. Drew David, the snapper, was the first man down. The Scott player punt traveling 46 yards with -4 on the return. As a defensive player, how much easier was it for you to face the same quarterback like Archer's second week in a row?
Well, I think it becomes more difficult as a defensive player because what you have to do is try to retract what you've done. And it's hard to hold the same game plan in your mind, especially if you didn't win the game. They only got to Archer one time last week. So Archer right now is feeling very good about what he's able to do against Birmingham.
Joe Kralik was their top receiver before he went down with a separated shoulder. Here's Saunders trying the right side. Saunders up to the 17. Anthony Drawhorn, the safety. In on the tackle.
Well, Mike Saunders is a very interesting aspect of this San Antonio offense. Last year when he was in Saskatchewan, he was very integral in getting them into the playoffs. They were 11-7 with him in the backfield, and basically a turnabout coming to San Antonio this year. They were 12-6 with Mike Saunders in the backfield, and his numbers are pretty parallel. 1,000-yard rushing, over 600 yards in receiving.
2nd down, 7, and Archer unloading deep, looking for Gamble, and he just fails to pull it in. Andre Strode was there, stride for stride.
Well, that was a pretty pass by David Archer. He had the time by his offensive line, but strode with the excellent coverage inside out. And as a defensive back, that's where you like to have a receiver on your outside shoulder. And that time he was able to get the left arm in and bat it away. But you have to take your hat off of Strode for coverage on that play.
Strode with 7 interceptions to lead Birmingham during the regular season. Under 2 minutes left, first quarter, here in San Antonio, where the hometown Texans have a 14-3 lead. Todd Jordan, the punter. And there's Drawhorn on the San Antonio side of half. And he spun off one tackle, finally brought down at the 40-yard line. So terrific field position for Birmingham after just a 34-yard punt.
The kicking game is so important in the CFL. Marcus Grant coming back on the field in his rookie year, having outstanding yardage and receptions, for this season. Now, this is the point where he has to take over. He's their go-to guy on offense. Simmons has to find a way to get him the ball consistently and try to get a touchdown on the scoreboard.
Former All-American at Houston, where they employed that run and shoot. And Simmons with great field position has a completion down at the 30-yard line. That's a first down. Matt Cody with the reception.
When you don't put pressure in Simmons' face, you give him the clear throwing lane. And he's a short quarterback, and when San Antonio was having success defensively, they were blitzing. They were sending 5 and 6 defenders, getting up in his face. Now they're only rushing 3 and 4.
Final minute of the first quarter, and Birmingham trying to close that 11-point Texan lead. First down, Simmons over the middle. There's a completion, and Eddie Britton has his second catch of the afternoon. Bobby Humphrey in coverage. Jack Pardee encouraged by the looks of this drive.
That was an excellent throw by Simmons, but the time given by his offensive line in the clear passing lane, there's no obstruction in his vision right there, so he can throw that strike on that post route and pick up the first down.
This run and shoot offense, over 6,000 yards passing this year, 41 passing touchdowns, second only to the Stampeders.
This is where you like for your young quarterback to run with the football in this area on the field.
Fakes once, has an open receiver, and almost picked off as the safety, Charles Franks, closed ground in a hurry. Looked like Britton was open.
Excellent job by Franks. Simmons has to put some mustard on that football. He got to get it there in a hurry. He tried to lob that one in. Franks broke on the ball. He should have picked this one off. He got one hand on it, and he batted it up, but almost came up with the big interception that would have really killed Birmingham at that point.
Well, they called San Antonio's defense the bounty hunters. Since mid-season, they've really started to make a lot of turnovers. Here's Ted Long on that little inside toss, and he's down at the 10 and will be 3 yards short of the first down. George Bethune bringing Long to the turf.
The shovel pass inside, and this is a situation where Birmingham is not going to gamble, but it might not be a bad choice to do it, but they're going to send the field goal team on. But excellent job defensively by San Antonio. They bend, but they don't break.
After starting at the Texan 40-yard line, the San Antonio defense will take this as a big plus.
This is an interesting point. Zendejas and Anderson, both kickers in this game, at one point led the NCAA in scoring while they were in college.
All-time leading scorers. Zendejas earlier, and Anderson now the present-day all-time leading scorer. Zendejas has his second field goal of the game on the final play of the first quarter here in San Antonio. And after 15 minutes of football, the San Antonio Texans, on a touchdown by David Archer and a touchdown pass to Mark Stock, have a 14-6 lead. Welcome back to the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. First ever All-American CFL playoff game. Last time Jack Bardee had his team play the same club in the first round of the playoffs as they faced in the last regular season game. Remember, Houston and Buffalo. Well, Jack doesn't want to remember. He just as soon forget.
No, his run and shoot ran away in the second half, and the rest was NFL history.
Had a 35-3 lead and lost 41-38 in overtime.
Frank Wright's coming out party.
Here's Marcus Gates, the speedy kick returner. Flag goes down, and finally Birmingham strings it across, and the ball came loose, but rolled out of bounds, untouched by the Cudas. All that running and just a 3-yard return for Gates.
You want to get a face mask to add a few yards on with it.
James, we talked about how close statistically these two teams were at the outset, and the passing yardage just about even, but that turnover was a key factor, and that's why San Antonio's in the lead.
Well, the passing yardage for Birmingham has been within the 35-yard lines. As we see right here, the ball is punched out at the end. That's a very headsy play by Gamble right there as he's making the tackle, but the ball gets out of bounds before one of the Birmingham players can get a hand on it.
But face mask is the call. Andre Strode called, and they march it up 15 yards to the 34. Well, Birmingham's game plan in the rematch against Archer this week was to get more heat on the big quarterback from Snipes and Peoples, number 3 and 4 in rushing the passer this year, and a quick hitter out to Saunders. Stopped by Mike James. Jimmy Reed blitzing on Archer that time.
Well, they only sacked Archer one time last week when they met, but they beat him up. They hit him several times, kept him on the ground. This last pass, he took another hit, but Archer has to get rid of the ball quick, because if he can get rid of the ball quick, he can keep Birmingham off balance all afternoon.
How about Jimmy Reed, number 39, 5'8", 196 pounds. He's like the Pinball Clements of CFL linebackers.
Well, you can actually hide him out there because he can get behind someone you've never seen.
Here he comes again. Archer stood in there and delivers the ball high for Kralik. Incomplete. So it'll bring up 3rd down, as that time they did turn the heat up on Archer.
Well, that's what you have to do. You have to blitz David Archer, because if you give him the time and he has these receivers running down the field, he'll find them open all day, and the pressure forces him to throw the ball high, and now the punting team is on.
Good coverage by Fernando Thomas on the intended receiver, Joe Kralik.
This is where, if you're Birmingham, you might want to try to put your block on, because you need to come up with a big play. They haven't done anything. Simmons is struggling. He's moving the ball, but he's struggling.
Got one last week against Todd Jordan.
There you go, baby.
Good kick by Jordan. And Drawhorn over the 35. And Tom Gerhardt pins him there. 47-yard punt and a 12-yard return for Anthony Drawhorn. Todd Jordan, not only the punter, but the number 3 quarterback, if needed.
Well, you look at Simmons coming on the field. Last week he averaged 8 yards a rush, and maybe it's time for him to start running the ball, because his passing game is good, but once he starts running the ball, that's where you can really keep a defense off balance. And if he's just going to sit in the pocket, they're content to bring the heat that way.
And watching the game film from last week, it was reminiscent of Condredge Holloway, his ability to run out of the run and shoot.
Number 7 in Toronto.
Long over the middle. And he has a catch to the 46.
He's very efficient in these short passes. He's done a fine job. The problem has come when he's tried to throw long. But now this is where he needs to let his athleticism take control. He needs to run the ball, move it around, try to wear down this San Antonio defense.
This is where Simmons has had problems today. It's 2nd and 1. But Birmingham just 1 for 6 on 2nd down conversions. And he calls the quarterback draw. Like he was a little juggling act with that football before he got across the 50, and he'll move the yardsticks. George Bethune with the tackle.
Looked like a receiver trying to run before having to handle on the football, but he was able to keep control and pick up the 1st down. You can see Coach Pardee being a little puzzled on the sideline, but Simmons has done a good job, but I think his strength really comes with his running.
First down for the Barracudas, and an open receiver over the middle. Charles Franks with the stop, but that's a catch for Dilius Morris.
San Antonio is playing a lot of zone defense, and Simmons, without the big heat up front, is picking apart the underneath part of this coverage. And so they're going to have to go a little more on the man side if they're going to keep the pressure on Simmons.
Ball at the San Antonio 46, and a first down for the Barracudas, who trail by 8. Out in the flat, and that's complete for Marcus Grant. Malcolm Frank in coverage on that far corner. Grant, an All-American out of Houston, who came out after his junior year, but it wasn't a wise decision. Was not drafted that season and was out of football last season driving a bus in Dallas. But boy, when he returned, they found a spot for him in this Birmingham offense.
Well, Franks does a wonderful job in jumping this route, but the thing about it, he's able to keep his feet and make the tackle. Normally when a defensive back gambles like that and he misses the ball, that's 6 points. But that time he was able to maintain his balance and push him out of bounds. You talked about Long, make that Grant coming out of college and coming out early. Also, Klingler, the backup quarterback for San Antonio, came out his junior year also, and he wasn't drafted. Did a couple of stints in the CFL, one try in the Saskatchewan camp, didn't stick, found a home here in Birmingham.
Okay, George. So it is a first down. And now you can hear the fans starting to make noise again, trying to disrupt the play calling of Simmons out of the shotgun. Good protection, and another completion to Matt Cody over the middle. As you're saying, James, they're working that inside.
The underneath zone, because the linebackers are not getting the drops. What they become is leery of Simmons running. When he ran the quarterback draw, he pulled closer to San Antonio linebackers, and when you do that, it leaves the middle undercovered. And if you're running those curl routes, they're going to be wide open, and Simmons has found those routes quite comfortable for him to look for.
Matt Cody, a former member of the Blue Bombers. Now Simmons throws back, and Morris, but great pursuit this time by the Texans defense. They'll drop him for a loss of close to 5. Grady Cavness was there.
Sometimes you have to wonder, when you're doing something and you're having a lot of success, why do you want to come up with a trick play? And that's basically what that is, the throwback screen to the far side of the field. Simmons has problems throwing the ball long, but he has a great touch when he's throwing over the middle. Cost himself 5 yards on that play.
So second down, close to 15 yards. Lots of time for Simmons, and now down he goes. No one was open. And after the play, Roosevelt Patterson knocked one of the Texan defenders down and will draw the flag, and he's upset.
Well, he's claiming that he got his face mask grabbed when he was going around, but Simmons had a lot of time. He just couldn't find an open receiver, and Bethune came and tackled him high, and Patterson got grabbed in the face mask. But downfield, you'll see a little contact, and that's what the players were crying about. You're not allowed to chuck a receiver outside of that 5-yard zone. Franks got away with one.
The sack goes to George Bethune, and George Black with the call. Penalty coming after the play, and back to the 50-yard line it goes, out of field goal range. So a costly penalty.
Well, that's really costly right there, that penalty, because you don't want to take the points off the scoreboard. In the way that Zendejas has been kicking, that was well within his range, and they could have used another 3 points on the scoreboard.
Number 12, Scott Player.
You'll get a shot right here of the penalty. Take some exception after the sack is down, and Patterson just clubs him when he's standing over the pile, and the official's right on top of it.
I think Simmons felt he was the victim of a face mask. Marcus Gates can't get away from Clisby. And San Antonio has the football on the 14-yard line when we return to the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. There's a guy who would love to be directing traffic out on the field today. Matt Dunnigan, the broken knuckle against the Edmonton Eskimos 3 weeks ago. He led the CFL in passing yardage this year. In fact, it was Dunnigan's best year ever. 4,910 yards of passing yardage on the season. Led the CFL in touchdowns with 34. But not available today, and won't be able to throw the football again till January.
Well, you know, even talking about Birmingham as a team, they set a record this year for pass attempts by one team in a single season. and Matt Dunnigan was the leader of that. But, you know, when you lose a quarterback like Matt Dunnigan, and he's had a history of injuries, it really hurt his team when it came down the playoff stretch.
And Jack Pardee went with David Klingler as Jimmy Klingler, younger brother of David Klingler, to
in the same family.
Dunnigan first, and then has settled on Simmons. Right now, David Archer faced with 2nd down and 6, and he'll gun it over the middle. There's Kralik running into Anthony Drawhorn. The flag is down after the catch by Kralik at the 45.
One of the things that Coach Kate Stevens thought coming into this season that he really needed to upgrade his passing team. San Antonio was hit by free agency, as well as there were a couple of players they didn't want to bring back. They didn't go for the big speed guys at the wide receiver position, but they went more for the efficient, crisp pass route runners. And Kralik and Stock have really developed this year in the fine receivers for quarterback David Archer.
26-yard pickup there as Archer combines with Joe Kralik. And it's a 1st down for San Antonio. Here's Mark Stock, already a touchdown in the game. And he's stopped by Eddie Davis at the 53, and that's a pickup of close to 9.
Well, Archer's getting the time right now, and that's what's the most important thing, is that he's getting the time to throw the ball. The crisp routes, as we spoke about, and that's one of the things that has made David Archer a better quarterback this year.
Kralik was the leading receiver until he got hurt early in the year, and then Mark Stock took over. 2nd and 1. And Sherman will have the 1st down off the right side and into Birmingham territory. Mark Ledbetter upending Sherman after he moved the yardsticks.
One of the big pluses for San Antonio is that they've been able to go through a wealth of backs this year. When they got Troy Mills back and they had he and Saunders in the backfield, there was a great combination. They also had Tony Burse, who they feel is their best special team players, but when Mills went down, they were able to pick up Heath Sherman, formerly of Philadelphia, and he's really molded well into this offense.
On the Birmingham side of half, not much there as the Birmingham defense closed it right down on Saunders.
32, Mike Saunders.
I know talking to David Archer a few days ago, he said that taking Troy Mills out of the offense was like cutting the backfield in half. He feels that Troy Mills, who was hurt against Birmingham in their first meeting, is the best back in the CFL.
Well, Troy Mills is an excellent running back. Last year he was a 1,000-yard rusher when this team was in Sacramento, and when he came in and you had he and Saunders together in the backfield, you really could not key on either back, and Saunders sacrificed his own personal statistics and became the fullback, and it was a great balanced tandem.
2nd and 10, and they convert on that completion to Billy Hess. Down to the 36-yard line. Hess was a key guy last week with 7 catches and 158 yards. That was a season high for San Antonio.
Well, Hess did a great job of running off the secondary, coming back to his quarterback. But David Archer right now is just throwing strikes. Last week he had the great game, and they've been 8-1 in their last 9 games since Archer has come back from an injury that he had late in the season and been averaging 40 points a game. But David Archer has only thrown 4 interceptions in the last 9 games and 20 touchdown passes of the regular season.
It's not bad. That's why he's the #1 rated quarterback in passing efficiency. 1st and 10, wide open was Kralik in that time. The ball sailed high.
Well, one of the things, that's one of the problems with David Archer, that's probably his only knock other than lack of mobility, is that sometimes he'll let the ball sail. Kralik was wide open in the seam, and he just let it float over his head. Got to take the time, get the nose down on the football.
Well, Archer has converted 3 consecutive times on this drive in 2nd down situations. Here it's 2nd and 10. At the Birmingham 36. Archer has an open Billy Hess. Hess down the sidelines. Touchdown. "36 yards, Archer to Hess, who hit the pylon and That's into the end zone for the score.
You know, I just speak about the lack of mobility of a David Archer. He was able to step outside the pocket and get the ball downfield to Hess. But David Archer created that play because his offensive line collapsed down the front wall of Birmingham. He stepped outside, had the unobstructed vision, found his open receiver for 6.
And this offense operating on all cylinders right now for David Archer. 2 touchdown passes, and Archer has one himself. There's 6 minutes to go, first half. And with the point after from Roman Anderson, it's now a 21-6 lead. And Archer 8 for 12, 184 yards. Antonio Texans now with a 21-6 lead. They were 4 for 4 in second down conversions on that last scoring drive. This Halloween is a week-long festivity here in San Antonio.
I just happened to be down here on San Antonio. I thought I saw some friend of yours down on the Riverwalk.
Here's Ted Long on the kickoff return. Got by the first wave of tacklers and is up across the 30-yard line. Archer has had the edge so far in this first half.
Another CFL playoff doubleheader for you here on the CBC, coming right up on our Chrysler Canada halftime report. Scott Oak and Ken Austin will preview the North semifinal of the defending Grey Cup champion BC Lions back in Edmonton to play the Eskimos, where they began it all last year. And then right after that, Chris, James, and I will have the first half highlights here at the Dome. Chris?
And it'll be interesting to see how the BC Lions come out today after losing 5 of their last 6, but still the Grey Cup champions. Here's Simmons, and this is the first time we've really seen him take off today. And he's up to the 45-yard line. Kelvin Simmons with 15 on that rush. Maurice Miller, the middle linebacker, brought him down.
And I actually think this is the strongest part of his game, because once he does this, once he starts running, you really keep your defensive players off balance. Maurice Miller comes up and he really doesn't stand a chance in open field one-on-one against Simmons, but he got some help from the outside, forced him back in. He was able to get in on the tackle, but as long as Simmons is running, San Antonio is going to have problems.
There's Maurice Miller, the outstanding player on the Texans last year. First down, little screen pass. And Woodside taken down at the 47. That's a pickup of just a couple.
Well, Jason Wallace came up from his halfback position. He's missed the last 2 games with the hamstring injury, but that time he closed on Woodside after he saw him turn the corner and stopped him well short of the first down.
There's Jason Wallace back in the lineup this week. He's missed the last 2 with the severe concussion. The Simmons statistics are impressive. He's 15 of 19, 141 yards, but the 1 interception's hurt him. Now guns it over the middle, and he had an open receiver, but couldn't get Ted Long the ball.
And he's also hurt on the play, Chris. He was rolled up on his leg, but he had done that once before where he didn't get enough heat on the football when he had an open receiver in the end zone. Once again, Long was open on the post route, and he didn't get the ball to him. You'll see right here on the replay as he's hit, just as he's throwing the ball, and the defender rolls up Long on his leg, and that's a tough call right there. I mean, the quarterback is throwing the ball, the defender really doesn't see that he's delivered it, and he has the foot planted.
That was James King who rolled into Williams, Simmons, and it's third down. Just under 4 minutes to go here in the second quarter. Will Height, the up man, takes it and is driven out of bounds at the 28.
Canadian Tire has guaranteed low prices every day on MotoMaster batteries, so you can get one whenever you need one, and you won't get left out in the cold.
Kelvin Simmons looks Looks like he's okay at the Birmingham bench. This game very much like last week's encounter here at the Alamo Dome. San Antonio took a big early lead, and then Simmons really got untracked in the fourth quarter when they put 24 points on the board. Archer would like to put this one out of reach early. If he can, has Kralik stepping out of bounds at the 36. That's a pickup of 6.
You know, one of the things about David Archer, he's been able to stay healthy this year. The San Antonio quarterbacks were only sacked 39 times this season. In their first year in the CFL back in 1993 when they were in Sacramento, the quarterbacks in Sacramento / San Antonio were sacked 78 times. And when your quarterback is taking a beating like that, and he threw for over 6,000 yards that year, but his numbers are down passing yardage this year, but he's also stayed on his feet and stayed healthy this season.
Remember Don Southern saying he couldn't believe Archer survived that first year. He's Sherman with the gain off the right side for a first down. Eddie Davis the tackle, but Sherman the big fullback. Out of Texas A&I. Moves the yardsticks, and the 3-minute warning given to both benches here. First half in Texas. You know, James, David Archer was saying when you play a team back-to-back, you want to do the same things but make it look different. And he said that Kay Stevenson has done a great job this year in the game plans of making that work. Some people starting to suggest that Stevenson is adapting to this game because he was criticized in the early years for not adapting to the CFL game.
He has changed in his own subtle way, and you're starting to see it roll off. I mean, he's become more CFL orientated in his pass calling.
There's Stock again wide open, and he turns away, dragged down by Fernando Thomas. But Stock, who had a 75-yard touchdown earlier, has another big play.
And that's back to the point of what you were talking about, Kay Stevens adapting to the CFL style of game. He would come out and normally run on first down, but now he's willing to air it out on first down and Stock on just a simple fly route as Archer laid it out perfectly, and he had the big reception, gave his team great field position inside the 20.
Gain of 48, and again, Stock had a 75-yarder earlier.
Angelo Snipes has not been heard of yet today. Only one sack by Birmingham last week, and they haven't been able to rattle Archer this afternoon.
Now Sherman pounding his way off the right side. Down to the 9. That's close to another first down. Pickup of 9 for Sherman.
When you look at the injuries this year in the running game with Burst and Mills, and this team in the last 9 games has averaged 100 yards a game on the ground, but the key was the block by Saunders, who got out from the fullback position to be the lead blocker for Sherman. Saunders is a 1,000-yard rusher, but he's not afraid to put the hat on a defender and get a block for his teammates.
Sherman, a starter for the Eagles in 93, missed 94 with a knee injury, takes the handoff, and he'll have the first down at the 4-yard line. Well, you lose Mills, but then Sherman comes in, and they're still formidable in that backfield.
The thing is, what's happening is that the offensive line is coming off the ball nice and crisp. They're getting those initial blocks, and so the second wave of defenders are having to come up and make the tackle. The defensive backs and the outside linebackers having to fold back in, and when you do that, you're going to pick up 6 and 7 yards a crowd.
That Birmingham defense built for speed.
They're a little light in the pocket now. Not financially, but they're a little light in the pocket weight-wise.
Speaking of which, whoever wins here, whoever loses will be a little lighter in the pocket. Saunders, left side, touchdown! Mike Saunders!
Now that's a great compliment to Mike Saunders. We saw him 2 plays prior to that, the lead blocker leading for Heath Sherman. He was rewarded with a counter, came back and able to punch it in for a touchdown of his own.
Saunders with 16 touchdowns during the regular season.
Very balanced, 8 rushing, 8 receiving, as we see once again the counter as he cuts back inside the explosiveness. He hits the hole, it's right there, and he stumbles into the end zone for the touchdown.
So they have 2 through the air, 2 on the ground. Anderson's converted all 4. And the Texans have exploded for 28 first half points.
Well, this offense has been averaging 40.4 points over the last 9 games since David Archer's come back in at starting quarterback. He had the injury. The team was 4-5 at one point. But once they got all their horses back and healthy, they've really rounded out into a very powerful offensive team. They came into this game second in the league in scoring, only 1 point behind Calgary. They scored 63 offensive touchdowns this year. This is a very powerful football team. Angelo Snipes, the big sack man, third in the league this year, came in underneath submarining. Saunders saw where he was and just skated right outside for the touchdown.
Fans enjoying this as Archer and teammates have really made a statement in this first half that they're intent on heading to Baltimore next week for the South Final. A 22-point lead.
Well, you know, in the 2 regular season games versus Birmingham, you really have to like David Archer's numbers. He was 44 for 72, 767 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. And that's what he's done this afternoon. He has not thrown any interceptions, but he's put the touchdowns on the scoreboard.
Ted Long with a flag down. Brought to the turf at the 31.
Flag down.
Oscar Giles, Brett Besh in on the stop.
New Big Gloves is proud to be a sponsor of the 1995 CFL playoffs.
Return will be called back on the penalty.
You know, I'm seeing something right now that I saw with Winnipeg yesterday. Players coming on the field relatively flat, being down in the first half. This is the game for all the marbles.
Birmingham number 48, first down.
Because if you lose today, you don't play next week. And Birmingham needs to have a little more intensity in their step. They're coming on the field. They look awful flat, non-motivated. The motivation is you need to get some points on the scoreboard.
Kelvin Simmons said he considers his mom his head coach. He confers with her a lot, and he may have to call home soon if they can't get this offense going.
Get her on that sideline phone.
Here's a pass picked up. Jason Wallace down at the 5. And taken into the Texas Tech band. But the Bounty Hunters have come up with 2 picks in this first half as the Texans are looking for the knockout punch early. A 29-yard return by Jason Wallace. His 5th interception of the year.
Had 4 in the regular season, but he jumped the route. The ball has a tendency to hang when Simmons is throwing the ball deep. He has to come with the sidearm delivery. Doesn't have as much velocity on the football, but Wallace being back in the lineup, missed 2 games with a hamstring injury, had a great break on the football. San Antonio with the ball in the red zone at the 4-yard line. Simmons was forced to come over and get into the tackle, but San Antonio right now is in a position to basically put this game away. They have the young quarterback rattled, and if David Archer and his offense can punch this one in, it's going to be a long afternoon for Birmingham.
Yeah, experience against youth was the matchup coming in, and it's all been Archer so far. Open receiver, touchdown, David Gamble.
And once again, the play fake. The running game for San Antonio this afternoon has been so effective is that the play fake, when you fake the handoff to the running back and you go right there to Sherman, you freeze the linebackers. And the safety Drawhorn was at the line of scrimmage. He bit on the play, touchdown the result.
Well, David Archer told us earlier in the week that it won't be a shootout this time. He didn't think the offenses could put as many points on the board, but they have struck for 5 touchdowns, 35 first half points, mind you. The defense is chipped in by setting up 2 of them with interceptions.
But you know what happens is that they're able to capitalize on turnovers, and that's an efficient offense. When your defense gives you the ball in great field position, you have to go out and put the touchdown on the board. San Antonio has done it twice here in the first half.
Well, Jack Pardee on the sidelines, and you wonder if he has to consider a quarterbacking change in the second half just to change the momentum.
Well, the insertion of Simmons last week, they felt that the mobility with the speed of the San Antonio defense, he would be able to offset that, which he did. But in the back-to-back match, they prepared very well this week for the young quarterback. They're able to make the defensive adjustments. They understood what his capabilities were this week. As for last week, they didn't, and they've defensed him greatly this game.
What Jack Pardee may have said is, listen, guys, I've seen Buffalo come back from way down, 35-3, so we can do it from 35-6.
Yeah, but Buffalo wasn't running that run-and-shoot offense at that time, and they had Thurman Thomas in the backfield along with Andre Reed out at wide receiver. But right now, Birmingham is in a huge hole, and they have to find some way to come up with something positive before this first half ends. We have 1:22 to go, but they need to come down and at least salvage a field goal in this drive.
Well, he told us earlier in the week we have to make David Archer throw the ball quicker than a week ago, but clearly they have not got any heat on Archer today. He's 11 for 15, 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, and Archer scored one on the ground too. Ted Long's deep, and they just find a little hole up the middle, and that's taken by the big up man, Akaba Delaney, who is a nose tackle, 280 pounds. At least he's listed at that, James. I'm not too sure.
Well, I don't know, because the pants don't come up too high, so the waistline is dropped. You know, he's put a lot in the midsection there as of late. But Simmons is coming back. He's trying to say, I'm okay, guys. But I don't know if he's okay. He's been rattled. The young quarterback has been rattled. They've gotten to him. They've really affected him. When you've thrown 2 interceptions in the first half and you've missed a couple of wide open receivers that would have gotten you touchdowns. Cleveland, we see a shot of Jimmy on the sideline there. He's not warming up, so it's Simmons' first half to finish.
I'd like to see Simmons take off with it. He calls his number here, the quarterback draw, and gets to the 53, gain of 7.
Well, the safest bet for him is to keep the ball in his hands on every play. You know they're going to stay back in the prevent defense as we get a shot of that running play, and Smith, the linebacker, coming up, making the tackle on Simmons, because if they're going to stay back and prevent, just run and pick up 7 and 8 yards every time.
2nd and 3. Approaching the final minute, first half. And this one's picked off. That's Tommy Smith with the 3rd interception of this first half, and San Antonio will get to go on offense again.
As I spoke about it, the safest place for the ball to be was in Simmons' hands, and that time Calvin Simmons went to the well again. Tommy Smith made him pay. As long as he's going to run the ball, it's safe. He's been putting the ball in the air, and he's not getting a lot on his passes. The ball is just floating out, but great zone coverage by Smith, jumping the flat route, taking the ball down to the 35. San Antonio can go for the knockout punch right here in the first half.
Tommy Smith, the former Washington Husky.
He was very husky on that play, too.
And Simmons, there's Smith, who was the leading tackler on this team till he went down and missed 5 with a knee injury. Well, let's see if they go for the juggler here. Hitch pass to Kralik, and Kralik has room down the sidelines. Out of bounds inside the 10.
I'll go for your terminology. Archer's looking for the hat trick?
Yeah. 26 yards there.
Well, Kralik, you know, the comeback, this receiving core is really rounded out, but the key is look at the blockers out in front. You got Sherman, you got Saunders, you got Kiesler getting out there, getting the blocks for Kralik, and that's the key, is that you have players hustling. And if the rest of the offensive players are going to hustle, it makes it so easy for your receivers.
26 yards for Kralik. It's 1st and goal from the 9. Lots of time for Archer into the end zone, and just over the outstretched hands of Mark Stock, who's got a beat.
I don't know if that ball was catchable. So, you know, he can sit there and complain about it. Go back to the huddle. You have 35 points on the scoreboard. Go back, regroup, just come out and make a play. But you'll see this ball at the end. I don't think the ball was that catchable. You know, it was well over his head. He has a nice vertical, but he's not going to get up sky high.
Archer's taking it on himself.
Yeah, he knew he had a wide open receiver. He just let that one get away.
He'll go right back to it on 2nd and goal from the 9. Fakes to Sherman. Flushed out. He might run it. Nope, throws back against the grain, and that almost picked off. And if Anthony Drawhorn squeezes that, he might have gone a long way.
Well, he had an opportunity, but that's a big break for Birmingham on that play. They could not afford to let San Antonio get in for one more touchdown right before the half, but they came up big when needed. Archer was flushed out of the pocket, and you said he might keep it because he had a lot of running room, but he's not the most fleet-of-foot of quarterbacks, and the defense might have tracked him down, but he had a wide-open receiver out to the right, tried to throw back against the grain. That's a poor decision by David Archer.
Anthony Drawhorn, 7 years CFL veteran, 3 years in Ottawa, 3 years BC and Saskatchewan. All Canadian in '92, and Archer's talking about the one that got away. So Roman Anderson puts this one through from 16 yards out. And with 33 seconds left in the first half, it's 38-6 for San Antonio.
And who would have expected that you'd have had a shootout like that today? David Archer has been totally efficient at quarterback, but the defense has been the true story for San Antonio here in the first half. They have completely shut down Kelvin Simmons, the rookie quarterback for Birmingham. They've taken away every option that he had. His best option was to run. He doesn't want to run.
And the second half of our doubleheader today, the defending Grey Cup champions meet the red-hot Edmonton Eskimos at Commonwealth Stadium, where despite the snow overnight, looks like a pretty good track today at Commonwealth. That should be a great matchup.
I think we got the past 2 Grey Cup champions in that game, don't we? Yes. Just thought I'd let you have that.
Keith Woodside, short gain. Looks like they want to just get in at the half and regroup.
Well, that's their safest bet right now because they haven't been too fortunate in holding on to the football. Their last 2 possessions have resulted in turnovers, so the best thing is not to give San Antonio the ball once again. You just try to run out the clock.
Second down, and Simmons will carry, and he's stopped right at the 40, just a couple of yards, and Tommy Smith with the tackle.
San Antonio's going to take their time out, so they feel they have just a little more gas left in the tank.
Well, close to a record-breaking quarter for San Antonio. They're the record holders, the Stampeders with 28 points in '91 and the record in 1979, but Texans with a big second quarter.
Yeah, but that 29 points still didn't get them to the Grey Cup. Edmonton once again. And those 2 teams will match up later on this afternoon at Commonwealth.
Boy, I feel like I'm working with Dan Kepley again. I'm getting all this Eskimo stuff.
He told me to throw that in.
Third down punting situation for Scott Player. And they almost got to that punt. Kenny Wilhite spins away from the first group and runs right into Mike James.
48, Mike James on the tackle.
A couple of yards on that hard-fought punt return, and the Tempur short now. There were some hard feelings after the first meeting of the year between these 2 teams. In fact, Jimmy Reed, another one of the linebackers along with Mike James, but it was Reed who was actually suspended for a game for a rough play. He got the hit on Troy Mills, which knocked him out. Clothesline David Archer during the course of the game, got in a scrap with Mike Saunders. They sent the game films to the CFL office, and Jimmy Reed was sat down for a game.
Must be a tough feeling to have the league come after you trying to suspend you and fine you.
I know that's a feeling that you're not aware of. At least not in the last couple of years. That's the final play of the first half, and there's a flag down as the gun sounds. There was an unsportsmanlike call, but Jack Pardee and the Birmingham Barracudas hustling off.
Well, the game can't end, the half can't end on a defensive penalty, so we got one more play, I think, unless they decline and just go to the locker room. I think that'd be the best thing, just go in.
that's the case. Both teams headed off.
Foul, face mask, Birmingham number 39, after the play was over.
Jimmy Reed.
Apply on a second half kickoff.
All right, so it all went wrong for Birmingham in the first half, and they'll start the second half with 15 yards tacked on to the opening kickoff. Matt Dunnigan, Jack Pardee. Boy, would he love to have his number one quarterback right now, but that's not possible. Let's go down and join the other coach and Mark Lee.
Thank you, Chris. Kay Stevenson standing by the sidelines just before heading to the locker room. Coach Stevenson, you told us earlier in the week that Kelvin Simmons maybe took you by surprise in his first start last week. You look well prepared today.
Well, we're doing a much better job, and certainly he's such a good athlete that he did take us by surprise, but I think we're playing him pretty well. We're ready today.
What do you tell your guys at the locker room at the half? You're up 38-6. It's almost a foregone conclusion at this point.
No, it's not. In a Canadian Football League game, as you know, if we had a 50-point lead with 3 minutes left, I'd still be worried. So anything can happen, especially with an explosive football team like that. So we got to come out and play one heck of a second half, because we've given up a lot of points in the second half. Can't do it today.
All right, Kay, thanks for your time. We'll see you in the second half. David Archer with 3 touchdown passes through the air and 1 on the ground. His team holds a huge lead, 38-6 over the Cudas at the half. The quest for Lord Grey's Holy Grail, that $48 silver cup he donated in the early 1900s, continues 83 years later. It all begins Saturday with the Sport Check Grey Cup Parade in preview, right through the streets of Regina. That should be excellent. We've got some great stories in store for you there, followed by the 83rd Grey Cup in Regina, Saskatchewan. They're coming from all over the province and the country to see this one. More than 54,000 seats already set up at Taylor Field. It'll be cold, but the atmosphere will be warm, and we're about set for the second half kickoff to see what the Cudas might have in store for their comeback. Here's Chris and James.
Well, Mark, I think the basic message in the first half for Kelvin Simmons and company was you don't mess with Texas, because everything that could go wrong pretty well did for Mr. Simmons, who has to rebound in the second half, and it looks like he is ready to come back in to start the second half, James.
Well, things in Texas have always been known to be big, and they do things on a grand scale, and you have to look at the 38 points that San Antonio was able to put on the board in the first half. But their defense really kept Kelvin Simmons off balance. He really didn't have a clue to what they were doing. They gave him one great option, that was to throw the short passes over the middle. He went away from that. They took advantage of the young quarterback.
Meantime, David Archer with a splendid first half. I think Kay Stevenson's most pleased with the way his defense has responded. Following the game last week, the defense in the locker room said, guys, you bailed us out this week, meaning the offense. We will do the job next week in the playoff game. And as we've talked about, those interceptions, the play of the defense has really made the difference here.
Yeah, they kind of felt that they let their offense down. They made the game much closer on paper than what it actually was, because they had a touchdown even on the last play of the game, and that was Birmingham last week. But this afternoon here in the first half, San Antonio has came out. They've retooled their defense. They understood the challenge that Birmingham was going to offer this afternoon, and they've been able to meet that challenge thus far.
I remember there was a 15-yard penalty tacked on the final play of the first half against Jimmy Reed for unsportsmanlike conduct, so they will have to kick it off from the 20-yard line. So Birmingham's already in a hole, and it gets a little deeper.
Here in the second half, Birmingham is going to have to find somebody who is willing to throw a fit, go out there and act like the schoolyard bully, take someone's lunch money, take it in the end zone and dance with it, because they've been awfully flat here in the first half. So they have to come out and really get things riled up here in the second.
Grady Cavness and Kenny Wilhite are deep, although not too deep after the penalty. And this is Wilhite across the 45-yard line, found some room, and Jimmy Reed tracks him down. But San Antonio will start for the first time on offense in the second half in the Birmingham zone.
Well, the passing stats of David Archer, speaks for themselves. 269 yards and 3 touchdowns, but the interceptions by Simmons that has really hurt his team, because 3 of those interceptions, all 3 actually led to points. 17 points were scored by San Antonio off of those 3 turnovers.
Well, let's see if David Archer can maintain the momentum. He'll start first down at the Barracuda 54. Heath Sherman has 3 down to the 51. Angelo Snipes with the tackle.
But this is the point for Birmingham. They're right now they're teetering on whether they can come up with something big. They need to find a way to get a turnover, at least stop a drive and force them to kick. We see Klingler warming up on the sideline. He probably will be the quarterback here for the second half, but he lacks the mobility of a Simmons.
2nd and 7 for San Antonio. And out of the shotgun, Archer with some heat on him, and down he goes. That's the first time they've got to David Archer today. Shante Peoples thought he had a fumble recovery as well. But Akaba Delaney, first man to get to Archer.
And that's what I spoke about coming in. They needed to find someone who was going to throw a fit up front and put some pressure on David Archer. And you see the front four just collapse in the pocket. David is not that mobile, so if you collapse it around him, you can get to him. A little celebration afterwards. And you said he what, weighed 280? Okay.
Yes, we want
90, 98.
We need confirmation of that one.
We have to start bringing a scale to the football game. Weigh everybody.
Todd Jordan.
Offensive lineman last, though.
And Anthony Drawhorn deep. Drawhorn from his 14. And the veteran's going nowhere. Drop back at the 9-yard line. Malcolm Frank led the surge downfield, and it is Kelvin Simmons who will lead the offense back on the field.
Well, he's going to give him one more chance to see if he can get anything started, but Simmons had a rough ride in the first half, and if San Antonio can continue to do what they've done defensively, I don't see things getting any better for the young quarterback.
Last week he ran so much he actually had leg cramps in the 4th quarter, but he did not run the San Antonio defense ragged in the first half. Pressure on, and he shows you his elusive qualities there up to the 16, and he'll have 2 or 3 on the play. Willie Fears brought him down.
Well, he had happy feet, but the happy feet brought him new life. He was able to duck up underneath the pass rush and find an escape lane and pick up some positive yardage on the play and avoid a sack inside the 5-yard line.
There's part of that Houston connection. John Jenkins, the offensive coordinator. Jimmy Klingler, another Houston quarterback. And 2nd and 7. Here comes the heat again. And Simmons pulls it down. Oh, and he took a hard hit on that right leg by Hurley Brown. And he'll be short of the first down. There's how he mixed it up in that first half. Ted Long, who's listed as a running back, but basically another slot back, was the favorite receiver with 43 yards.
Well, Jenkins' philosophy to have a running back is like a waste of a down. He really doesn't believe in running plays in the game. He'll like to use the shuttle pass, but he thinks that you're going to be more effective offensively if you're putting the ball in the air.
They don't even like calling them running backs. Keith Woodside is called a super back. He has not been a super back so far this afternoon.
Players contacted by
Kenny Wilhite, 44-yard line. Across the 50 to the 51, where San Antonio enjoys great field position once again and a 32-point lead. CFL fans in Texas smiling so far this afternoon. A healthy 38-6 lead for David Archer and company. And he was passing at will in that first half. Hard to believe. He did not have a 1,000-yard receiver during the regular season, but Stock has a big chunk today, 143 yards, including a 75-yard touchdown. First down for the Texans. Here comes the blitz, and they get to Archer again. So they have been able to turn up the heat in this second half. Shante Peoples with the sack, and he was 4th in the league this year, 15 sacks during the regular season.
Well, they had great balance up front with their sack men, Peoples and Snipes, 3rd and 4th in the league. And that time, you see how they collapsed the pocket. They brought the blitz up the middle with James, the linebacker, forced Archer to move to one side, and then Peoples came off the corner, picked up the sack.
Shante Peoples with Las Vegas last year when he was 4th in the league in sacks as well. 2nd and long, and Archer throwing it out for Stock, and that falls incomplete.
But you can see how the pressure has affected Archer. He's not as settled as he was in the first half in the pocket. You hit a quarterback a couple times, he'll become rattled. Even David Archer has become rattled here in the second half.
And last week, he got off to a slower start because the rush last week came in the first half. When he was able to buy some time in the second half, he really picked Birmingham apart.
Well, they made the adjustments, and that's what a coaching staff should do at the halftime, is that they should go in and make adjustments. They see what they're not doing properly. Birmingham's coaches have done a good job in preparation for the second half.
Todd Jordan, end over end kick. Matt Cody fields it on the one hop. And he's nailed at the 31. Rob Stevenson and Maurice Miller downfield, a 42-yard punt and a 7-yard return for Matt Cody. Kelvin Simmons back in. I mentioned big name in Alabama football circles.
Well, people said if he had gone to the University of Alabama that they would have never heard of Jay Barker, who led the Crimson Tide to a national championship. That's how good an athlete he was in that state.
Played in the blue-gray game to wrap up his college career and was the MVP of that bowl game. Out in the flat, there's Woodside, and Woodside across the 35 to the 37, and he has a pickup of 5.
Well, you know, when you look at Woodside and Simmons together, these are the only 2 players for Birmingham who had rushed for over 100 yards in a single game during the regular season. But Woodside, it doesn't seem to be that explosive this afternoon when he gets his hands on the ball. He's sort of like skating out in the flat with the ball. He needs to be more aggressive with his running.
Woodside, former running back at Texas A&M. In fact, a lot of Texas ball players on this Birmingham team. They needed 320 tickets for last week's game. Don't know if they ordered 320 more because the playoff price is usually a little more expensive.
It's inflated and the league controls that, so there's not that many giveaways. But right now, Simmons on that last pass went back to what he was effective with in the first half, throwing the quick slants over the middle in that underneath coverage on the zone.
Well, that's the barometer for the Barracudas' success this year. 21 points, right now just 6. Pair of field goals to show for their work in the first half. Simmons a couple of first downs on this drive, has an open receiver, and that is Dillius Morris trying to get outside, and he's run out of bounds at the 30-yard line by Malcolm Frank.
First down.
Will we be looking at a performance like Simmons performed last week in the second half when he was very effective and once again the underneath routes, but the offensive line is giving him the time, and that's the key. San Antonio's playing very soft in the back end, and he's been able to exploit that thus far here in the third quarter.
Gain of 32 for Morris, and it's first down, Birmingham.
This is where the offense has been bogging down inside the 30, though, Chris.
Looking downfield, now pulls it down. Over the 25, and a pickup of 6 on the play for Simmons.
He has to understand that you can slide when you're a quarterback and the defenders are not allowed to hit you, because if he keeps taking shots like that, he won't see the end of the third quarter today.
Mentioned he was cut in training camp. The reason for that, the Cudas had Matt Dunnigan, Jimmy Klingler, who's still with the team, and at the time, Reggie Slack.
Reggie Slack set a CFL record yesterday for pass attempts in a game versus Baltimore, 51 pass attempts.
Second down, 3, and there's Ted Long, and he has another first down inside the 10. Charles Franks with the tackle, but the Cudas in business.
All the plays for Birmingham are called from the sideline by the offensive coordinator, John Jenkins, and when he's calling the plays to keep the ball inside the hash, that is where Simmons is the most effective. And so if he's setting his own game plan, that's what he needs to keep doing, keeping the ball inside the hash to his receivers.
Midway through the third quarter, Birmingham looking for its first touchdown, but Maurice Miller has Simmons back at the 25. Their outstanding player in 1994, Maurice Miller, bringing down Simmons, and Pardee showing the frustration on the sideline.
Well, the middle linebacker needed to make something happen. He's right in the middle, and you'll see him come right here. He sneaks in. He's going to come through untouched right there. As we roll it through, no one gets a hat on Miller. He has a free run to the quarterback, Simmons. Big play, San Antonio's defense. Once again, you'll see Miller as he creeps up just at the snap count, comes through cleanly, untouched, gets the sack. Now it's 2nd and long. It's going to be really critical. Can Birmingham come up with the play to salvage this drive? Because they cannot afford to walk away without any points on this long march.
There's Willie Fears, the former Winnipeg Blue Bomber, on the sidelines, shaken up. Has a great kept ring with the Bombers.
Shower too.
Yeah, cooling down after being shaken up. And speaking of the Bombers, I know Cal Murphy wanted us to say hi to Bud Harden, the Director of Sales and Marketing for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who underwent a kidney transplant over the Thanksgiving weekend. And, our thoughts are with Bud. Hope everything is doing well, and everybody in Winnipeg a little disappointed with the loss yesterday to Baltimore, and now we're trying to decide who will play the Stallions in this Southern final. Kelvin Simmons on that 2nd and 20 with the completion, but there are flags down on the play.
Well, this one's going to be brought back. It's in that area where you're going to get a chop block, possibly.
Holding, Birmingham, number 68. Repeat, 2nd down.
Just as bad. It takes another big play, and it takes them further back. Just when the team gets down, look like they're going to get their first major of the game. A sack, and now a penalty has marched them back out to the 35-yard line. You'll get the holding right in the middle of your screen here. Clear shot, the official right on top of it. Throws the flag. Birmingham in trouble.
It's 2nd and goal from the 29. And Simmons going for the bundle in the end zone, and Marcus Grant just couldn't run under it. Speed to burn, but that one just overthrown.
You know, everyone has raved about how efficient San Antonio's offense has been this year with the high number of point production that they've had, but their defense is ranked 4th in the CFL this season, so it's not uncommon for them to come out and be able to shut down an opponent. In the last 9 games, they've only given up 322 yards a game, and this afternoon they've only given up 6 points here in the 3rd quarter.
Speaking of defense, he's a great defensive player in the NFL, the Los Angeles Rams. Played with the fearsome foursome.
Over the hill game in Washington.
Zendejas puts this one through. His 3rd field goal, but they've got to put some majors on the board to get back in this one. It's 38-9.
Well, the one thing about their offense that's a positive is that they've been able to march the ball here in the 3rd quarter, and they've been able to shut down San Antonio offensively with their defense.
And we talk about quarterbacks, whether Jack Pardee will make a change today. He's had an interesting history of working with quarterbacks in the NFL, guys with great reputations around the Canadian League. He coached Warren Moon in Houston. He replaced Billy Kilmer in Washington with a guy by the name of Theismann. Jack Pardee also coached Doug Flutie during days with the Houston Gamblers.
We get a shot of Klingler, Dunnigan, and Simmons on the sideline. It seems like Dunnigan would be more active over with the 2 young quarterbacks, giving some of his expertise and years of experience, but he's removed himself away from that situation because Jenkins has control of the offense, and so he tries to stay out of that situation. But right now, they could use the assistance of a Matt Dunnigan.
Well, at times, Matt expressed some frustration with the limitations that the run and shoot offered in his play calling ability, and Jenkins is the man who makes the calls.
Well, I wonder where Matt's staying. Do they have any sunshine peeking through over there? Is it brighter on that side of the stadium than it is on this side?
Zendejas kicking it off. And Kenny Wilhite has it. They faked that reverse a couple of times so far. Wilhite up to the 30-yard line. So it's 38-9, 6:12 to go, third quarter, and following this game, we'll head to Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton. Ron Lancaster's Eskimos playing host to Dave Ritchie's defending Grey Cup champion BC Lions. Next Sunday, we'll be back at Memorial Stadium, where the Stallions will play host to the San Antonio Texans, unless Birmingham mounts one of the great comebacks in CFL playoff history.
Wouldn't that be exciting, though?
It sure would. But to do it, I would think David Archer's going to have to make some mistakes, and he doesn't make many.
And you talk about not making many. I think his efficiency rating this year spoke for itself at 108.4, the highest ranked in the CFL this season. That shows how much David Archer had grown at the quarterback position. Everyone raved when he first came into the CFL in '93 about the 6,000 yards that he passed for, but he was always behind, so it was very easy to accumulate that type of yardage. This year passing for only 4,400 yards, but the touchdowns, the 30 touchdowns and the interceptions were way down this year, and his team has a winning record.
East Sherman over the 40, and he'll have a first down. They've got such a nice balance here. They've got the fifth best passing team in the CFL, but the number 3 rushing team.
And that's led by Mike Saunders, who came in this year after being a free agent last year in Saskatchewan, but his role, his total team role is what's been most important this year. When he came in, we see a look at Angelo Snipes, who gets in on that tackle there, but Mike Saunders with 1,031 yards this year has really balanced out this San Antonio offensive attack.
And he'll stick his helmet in there and block for Sherman as well. There's a loose football, and Birmingham has it. Well, they needed a break, they needed a turnover, and the Texans make their first mistake of the day. Jack Pardee encouraged by that.
Anthony Drawhorn with the fumble recovery on the play, and just as we spoke about it, David Archer mishandles the snap from center, but Drawhorn alert close at the line of scrimmage from his free safety position recovers, and now Birmingham has the ball with great field position at the 45. You'll see right here, he's trying to quarterback sneak it right there, and as he's hit, he lets the ball lay on the turf. Drawhorn alert recovers.
Well, let's see if Simmons can make San Antonio pay for their mistake. Goes to work in the air, and that one hops about 5 yards in front of the intended receiver, Jason Phillips.
Well, he had a nice tight spiral on the ball. He just didn't have anything behind it. He has to step up, but he's been very effective when he's thrown the short passes. Jason Phillips right there, another one of those Houston Cougars.
Another one of the All-Americans.
All-American, another one of those guys who caught 100 passes while he was in college along with Grant.
One of only 4 players in NCAA history to lead college football 2 years in a row in receiving. Simmons pulled it down, and he's pulled down. That's Willie Fears back in the lineup, and he wasn't going to let Simmons out of his grasp. Simmons has words with Miller.
Well, Willie Fears hasn't played up to the potential that they expected from him. He only had 1 quarterback sack coming into today's contest, but a big play needed by someone up front for San Antonio, and Willie Fears able to get one of those big paws on the jersey of Simmons, and he pulled him down. This is what happens when you have a very small quarterback. You can take a defensive lineman and just drag him down by his shirt tail.
Need those tearaway jerseys we see in.
That was made famous down here in Texas.
Underside,
Texas started that.
Here's Kenny Wilhite over the 15 up to the 18-yard line. So no points after the fumble by San Antonio. Last year when Danny McManus, Ken Austin, and the BC Lions went into Commonwealth Stadium to play the Edmonton Eskimos, it was one of the most memorable games of the year. And this year, Kerwin Bell is wearing the green and gold, former backup to David Archer. And it should be another terrific matchup today at Commonwealth Stadium. We're back in San Antonio, Texas at the Dome, where the Texans are in charge, 38-9, 3:23 to go, third quarter. And Archer dumped again. That's the 3rd sack in the second half. Mark Ledbetter getting through.
And Ledbetter was a former teammate of Archer for 2 years in Sacramento. They were down there with the gold miners, but that time Ledbetter just defeats the blocker up front on a basic bull rush, comes right up the middle, grabs Archer around the legs, and the third time the San Antonio quarterback has gone down here in the third quarter.
And that has to be a little distressing on the sidelines for the Texans. You want to see their team let up, and you don't want to expose your quarterback to too many hits if you are moving on next week. Archer on the run. That's Gamble for a first down as he stretches out up to the 34.
Well, Archer showing that unexpected mobility. He wasn't having any success sitting in the pocket as we see Gamble slow getting up. He took a tremendous hit on the sideline, but he wasn't having any success sitting in the pocket, so he bought himself some extra time rolling outside, found a wide open Gamble for the first down.
James.
First and 10, San Antonio at the 32-yard line. As Ledbetter gets set to put the heat on again, but the gives to Heath Sherman, and a flag comes down.
Sherman will carry flag down.
At the 33, there's Jimmy Reed.
Going to get that holding penalty. Jimmy Reed with that Darth Vader look out there. Not as big.
Well, let's see what George Black has. Looks like the options are going to Birmingham.
Holding. San Antonio number 63. Penalty is declined. Second down.
The center, Mike Kiselak. No gain on the play, so it'll be 2nd and 10 for Archer.
Mike has played every game this year for San Antonio at the starting center position.
Just 20 yards for David Archer in this third quarter so far, and we have just 90 seconds to go. Like Peoples jumped offside. The throw incomplete. Kralik never saw it coming.
Pass for Kralik.
There is a flag down.
Well, you're going to get Shante Peoples, who got caught in that neutral zone, and that was a free one for Archer, and he thought that he had a wide open Kralik, but once again, he let the ball sail high.
And Kralik didn't see it until it sailed over his head.
Offside, Birmingham number 56. Repeat, second down.
But Archer gets the down over. It'll be 2nd and 5 as Stevenson calls in the plays. We were asking Kay Stevenson about that. Why wouldn't you let an experienced quarterback like Archer call his own plays? And he says because we spend far more time than any of the quarterbacks in preparing the game plan. We can see more with our coaches upstairs.
Ball's gone, outscored!
And here's a pass to Stock, knocked down. Nice defensive play there by Eddie Davis.
Broken up by number 25.
As he was in coverage against Stock.
That was a marvelous play by Eddie Davis. Came into this game 2nd on this team in tackles with 71. But look at the concentration. He finds the football. He gets that arm out at the last moment and deflects it away. That's how you play the ball. You get your head turned at that last moment and get your hands up.
Not much for David Archer in this third quarter, but a 29-point lead.
90. Keep the hands in now.
Well, this San Antonio offense has gone in reverse here in the third quarter. They just haven't been able to move the ball, but now Birmingham needs to find a way to get into the end zone.
Again, this year they have not shown an ability to get big plays on special teams. Anthony Drawford trying to change that, but penalty markers are down.
Looks like the laundromat's going to get a call next.
There are a few markers on the field.
But once again, when you look at Birmingham, they're coming on the field very flat. It's not much emotion on the San Antonio sideline here in the third quarter, and that's part of the low that they've had productivity-wise. But Birmingham now, somebody needs to kickstart this team and find a way to get the ball into the end zone.
And it looks like the emotional level of the Texans has come down after that dominating first half. But again, they probably believe they've already won on that sideline.
Well, you know,
Illegal block, Birmingham number 9. Penalty is accepted. Holding, Birmingham number 3. Penalty is declined. First down.
Well, so often teams get big leads and they go flat because they forget you got to play 60 minutes of football. And they think that it's just going to happen for them in the second half, and it just hasn't been the case for San Antonio. But for Birmingham, they just haven't been able to find that one key element. They keep going away from where they have success, and that's the passing over the middle underneath.
Simmons still at quarterback. Had a man open over the middle and delivered the football high. Delius Morris, the intended receiver.
And that's one thing that Birmingham has figured out, that there's an open spot in the middle of San Antonio's zone defense, and it's always going to be open if they throw the ball there. It's just a matter of putting the ball on the money.
So it'll be 2nd and 10 at the 25. Simmons has to run it, but he is thrown to the turf. Maurice Miller, and they've had something going in the last few series, and Miller took him down hard.
And we got a flag at the end of that play also, and it's going to be a big penalty, because if this is against San Antonio, it's going to keep this drive marching downfield and be a very foolish penalty on their behalf.
It would have been the final play of the third quarter, but the penalty may give Birmingham one more shot before.
Well, it's going to go against Birmingham. Someone took some exceptions to Miller's slam of Simmons on the turf, and it cost their team.
Major foul, unnecessary roughness. Birmingham number 14 after the whistle, 3rd down.
I thought Simmons got the worst of that. You know, the littlest guy, the smallest guy on the field gets the penalty for objectionable conduct. But watch Maurice Miller as he takes him and treats him like a rag doll here and just slams him to the turf. And Simmons didn't like that at all.
Yeah, Simmons was hanging on to the face mask as he was going down. Scott Blair with the punt, and Wilhite dropped it at midfield and just scoops it to safety out of bounds. And that is the final play of the third quarter. And Birmingham unable to cut into the lead substantially. It's 38-9 after 45 minutes.
It's a Canadian Fall Classic. It started with 8 teams. By the end of this weekend, it will just be 4. The celebrations continue next Sunday with the North and South Divisional Finals.
In case you joined us late, here's how the scoring developed this afternoon. Zendejas opened the scoring for Birmingham, but after an interception, David Archer plunged 1 yard. Next possession, 75 yards to Mark Stock. And it was a sign that Archer and San Antonio were in for a big day. He hooked up with Hess, made it 21-6. Saunders a 4-yard run. And after another interception, a pass to Gamble made it 35-6. Anderson made it 38-6 at the half. And in the third quarter, just the one field goal by Birmingham. And it's 38-9. Start of the fourth quarter, and Archer, under pressure, took a hit and unleashes the ball incomplete. And Archer really popped there again.
You know, people might be confused at how Simmons got the penalty at the end of the last quarter, but watch as he gets slammed to the ground, and we're going to roll it here just a little bit further, but watch right here, freeze it. The punch that came right up on him and slapped him while he was on the ground, but it's always the second guy who's going to get caught in those situations.
That's just like hockey. It's the retaliation.
He's one of the big macho guys. You can play on the Legion of Doom.
Archer 2nd and 10, flagged down, and another incomplete pass. Prior to that delivery, Archer in the second half, 1 for 4, 20 yards, and he's been sacked 3 times.
Well, it's been the pressure of Birmingham's front four on David Archer.
Holding, San Antonio number 69. Penalty is declined. Third down.
That has him unnerved. He's been hopping around in the pocket. He's got the happy feet. He's frustrated. He's yelling at his receivers, but also he has to be patient and deliver the ball on time. He cannot be jumping around and expect the receivers to make the adjustments because they don't see the pressure that he's getting.
Get the impression he's upset because this is not the way to finish off Birmingham, and it's not the way to get ready for Baltimore. Todd Jordan, the punter, has not been busy so far today.
Todd Jordan's punt taken by
here's Cody.
number 5.
And Mac Cody contained for a short punt return as Birmingham comes back on offense.
Canadian Tire has guaranteed low prices every day on MotoMaster batteries, so you can get one whenever you need one, and you won't get left out in the cold.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Four interceptions today.
Grady Cavness has 5 interceptions this year. 3 have come out against Birmingham. He got the Texans kick-started in this one with an interception in the first quarter, and here's his second of the day.
Well, a poorly thrown ball and an ill-advised throw by Simmons on the play because Cavness was sitting right in front of Cody, the receiver, but excellent concentration on the football. Back on November 4th, make that September 4th, he picked off 2 passes versus Toronto, and he's had 2 this afternoon versus Birmingham.
Well, Simmons maybe can take consolation in the fact it happens to the best of them. 4 interceptions for Doug Flutie yesterday. There's Heath Sherman picking his way through the heart of the defense before he's dragged down by Roland and Drawhorn. Of course, the difference is Doug Flutie is going to get another chance next week in the North Final, and these stats tell you that the Barracudas probably won't.
Well, at this pace, the 238 yards of total offense, but once again, the 3 turnovers after 3 quarters have been the most telling of all statistics, and now the 4th here in the 4th quarter. And they've scored off of all turnovers early. Can they get one more score off of this one?
Steve Anderson making the defensive play there. Returning to the lineup after missing the past couple of weeks with an injury. In fact, he was hurt in the first meeting between San Antonio and Birmingham.
Archer's felt a lot of heat from his past couple of passes. Will his offensive lineman be able to give him time here on this 2nd and 10 attempt?
David Archer looking deep, looking for Gamble at the goal line. And there goes the flag. Gamble almost made the catch anyway. Fernando Thomas draped all over him. Gamble 2 catches last week, 85 yards, so he is a deep threat for Archer.
Well, this was a perfect throw by David Archer.
Birmingham number 3.
And a good call by the official. Right at the end of the play, you're going to see the right hand go in there. Just at the end, as the ball gets close, get a freeze right here. You see him right here as he's got the arm right inside, wrapped up on the receiver. And the official right on top from the inside call that. Perfect call by the official.
So it gives San Antonio a 1st and goal on the 1.
And San Antonio, on 3 previous turnovers, they were able to get points. Right now, the 4th turnover, and they're at the 1-yard line.
Sherman to the line, and Jimmy Reed and company pulling him out. He did not cross the plane. And it'll be 2nd down. See that graphic, just 5 yards in penalties for Kay Stevenson's team today. Last week, they had a season-high 177.
Well, the discipline of a Kay Stevens proves itself on that point right there, because when you have a team with a game of this significance, why lose yardage on foolish penalties? His team has came out and played an excellent, disciplined game this afternoon, and the results are on the scoreboard with 38 points, trying to punch it in for some more.
So it's 2nd and goal from the 1. And they'll try Sherman again. He's in this time. Touchdown, Texas.
Chris, 24 points off of 23 and trying for the extra point could be 24 points off of turnovers. That's how good football teams perform, is when you get the opportunity to bury your opponent, you have to take advantage of it. And right here, he's Sherman diving off the left side of the formation in for the touchdown, giving San Antonio a 44-9 lead here in the 4th quarter.
And 10 minutes and 10 seconds away from a trip to the South Final in Baltimore next Sunday. Roman Anderson adding another point. Leading scorer in the CFL this year, and Heath Sherman adding to the celebrations here in San Antonio. As Mr. Curry mentioned, a matchup of the Grey Cup champions of the last 2 years. There's Dave Ritchie, as his team looks like it's just concluded the pregame warm-up, facing Ron Lancaster and the Edmonton Eskimos this afternoon. That's a great matchup. The Eskimos on a high going into the playoffs, and the Lions weren't sharp down the stretch. Can they recapture that cardiac kid magic of a year ago?
Yeah, that was a thrilling run to the Grey Cup last year by the BC Lions, to be culminated with the Louis Pasaglia field goal that BC placed on the last play of the game. What a more fitting finish that you could ask for.
Right now, David Archer and the San Antonio Texans trying to finish this one off and concentrate on Baltimore. Let's join Mark Lee.
Chris, you notice that David Archer hasn't been passing in the second half with the same authority he had in the first half. He just told me he took a shot in the upper right part of his chest, and it's affected his throwing arm. He's feeling some pain there, so we'll see how he does from here on in.
Backup quarterback is Jim Kemp. And here's Simmons with heat on him from Oscar Giles, just getting the pass away incomplete.
Talk about feeling pain. Kelvin Simmons has felt some pain this afternoon.
You wonder how serious the injury to Archer might be. Just 20 yards passing in the second half. There's Giles getting to Simmons.
Well, Kemp is picking up a ball, and he's starting to warm up down on the sideline. So I think we've seen the last of David Archer. And Jimmy Kemp will come in and finish up this game for San Antonio.
Not much point risking it with a 45-9 lead. Simmons has a completion over the middle. Delius Morris has become the favorite receiver this afternoon. There's Jim Kemp, who got a couple of starts and had a whale of a football game against the Calgary Stampeders earlier this year. Stampeders had to come from behind late to win it here at the Alamo Dome, with David Archer out for 3.5 games with a hamstring problem.
You know, you look at Jimmy Kemp there. His dad was a quarterback in our producer's favorite city, Buffalo. Jack Kemp, Senator.
Same as the head coach, Kay Stevenson. Third down. The call here, and Simmons won't get back to the line of scrimmage. They turn it over on downs. And once again, Oscar Giles had a great series there. Backup defensive end.
Well, the big plays have been needed by San Antonio defensively. They've been a little flat in the third quarter, but they've turned the gauges back up here in the fourth. Oscar Giles putting on a one-man show here in the fourth, picking up Simmons once again on the sack. Turnover, San Antonio. The reaction after the play, and that's what you need. You need that spark. We haven't seen that spark from Birmingham all afternoon, but the guys in San Antonio are starting to feel it. Archer's back in the game. I question the decision by the head coach.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. Jimmy Kemp just starting to warm up. Maybe that turnover on downs didn't give Kemp enough time to get ready. Saunders, left side, big hole, Mike Saunders. And a flag down after he had the initial first down. Saunders showed you his acceleration there.
Well, that's in that holding realm where you're going to get it and it's going to bring it back. But you talk about Kemp not having enough time to warm up. You don't really need to warm up if you're just handing the ball off and you got Mike Saunders and Heath Sherman in the backfield. But David Archer, I mean, he's done a fine job this afternoon.
San Antonio, number 6. After the first down yardage had been gained. 10-yard penalty. First down.
Give your starting quarterback a rest, get him some early medical attention to the upper chest area where he suffered the injury, and get Kemp into the game because you need your backup to get some game work in. As you'll see right here, the holding came after the first down right in the corner of your screen there, but Kemp needs to get some game reps in.
David Gamble called for holding. You saw he had a handful of jersey. Saunders 8 carries, 41 yards. And he'll get another carry here, dragged down for a big loss. Back in the 52. Mark Ledbetter, who's had a pretty good afternoon against his former teammates.
Well, he's accustomed with the blocking schemes of San Antonio's offensive linemen after spending 2 years there. As we see guys starting to enjoy this game now that they feel they have it wrapped up, and you can see the lack of emotion as we've seen for the most part on Birmingham's side this afternoon.
Been a long afternoon for the Birmingham team, but a successful expansion year. 10-8 during the regular season and a berth in the playoffs, something San Antonio or Sacramento for the first 2 years was unable to achieve. Archer does throw. Mark Stock over the middle. And he's wrestled down by Eddie Davis. That's a first down at the 28. And David Archer goes back to the air.
And I think he hurt his hand on that last play, Chris, that he might have smacked it on one of the defenders' helmets. And if we can get a look at it, but you see Stock running a nice crisp route. And this is where they've had the success over the middle. Both teams with the curl routes. That time Archer had a lot of mustard on it.
And David Archer is now coming out of the game. You wondered why they were taking chances.
You can see right there as he hits his throwing hand on the helmet. And I question Coach Kay Stevens for leaving his quarterback in. That's what hurt Matt Dunnigan. And 2 weeks ago, that's how he broke his finger. Now they're going to have to check David Archer out. 2 years ago in Sacramento, he dislocated his thumb on that same type of throw.
And Jimmy Kemp, his first handoff to Heath Sherman. Another first down as they check Archer out.
It's the thumb once again. You can see right there as they were checking the thumb, and that's going to cause some concern because if he gets some swelling in that hand, he's not going to be able to grip the ball too firmly in Baltimore next week.
Here's Kemp's numbers. He got action in 4 games this year with the injury to Archer. Archer showed us a good sign, though. He used that throwing hand to give Stock a pat in the back, so he isn't nursing any pain at the moment. Saunders, a couple of yards on that plunge. Sherman now has 69 yards rushing.
Well, you can see right there where he's talking about how he jammed it on the player coming in, but he's holding that thumb upward, so he's trying to keep it away. You know, a lot of times players try to disguise when they actually have an injury, but David Archer's had serious problems in the past with that throwing hand thumb. So once again, we'll get a look. Watch as it slams against the opposing player's helmet right there as Snipes comes through, and that's where he slammed it, right on his helmet as he came through it. We'll see next week, though.
2nd and 7. And Kemp swings it out. Saunders cuts inside. Mike Saunders to the goal line. Touchdown. Second touchdown for Saunders. Ran for one earlier. Now has a reception for a touchdown. 18 overall in the year.
Mike Saunders has just been a great addition for this club. I mean, what he possesses as far as athleticism coming out of the backfield as a receiver and a running back, but his agility in the open field to make defenders miss is what's exceptional about Mike Saunders.
Anderson converts another, and it's 52-9. And the lights are just about turned out on the Birmingham season. 4:32 to go. Jim Kemp comes in, and he has his first playoff touchdown pass. Little swing pass to Mike Saunders.
And that's what you need to get your backup quarterback in, let him get some actual game reps against live bullets. And that time Kemp did a fine job of looking off the defensive coverage, coming back to Saunders out in the flat. Touchdown once again, San Antonio.
This fella's having to reload a few times today. 52-9. And remember, that last touchdown came after Birmingham turned it over on downs. So they've scored 31 off turnovers today. One of the most explosive postseason performances ever. And still 4.5 minutes to go. Here's Long. Up to the 29-yard line. So Baltimore and San Antonio for an interesting sub-final.
You know, a real interesting matchup when you look at it. You got power running against great passing in these two ball clubs. Both teams have exceptional running games. Mike Saunders is a great back, but Baltimore at home on the grass in the open elements, where San Antonio hasn't fared that well outdoors this year, and on the natural grass they're only 1-2.
Baltimore 15-3 on the season. 2 victories over San Antonio very early in the year in the first 3 weeks.
Very early, and San Antonio really didn't have their team set at that point when they played Baltimore early. But right now, these two teams really match up well together.
Mike Pringle was with this team in its first year for a time. You know, there's a lot of talk on the San Antonio side about the similarities between this year and '92, when they won 7 in a row and went on to win the WLAF. And it was Kay Stevenson and David Archer in Sacramento beating Don Matthews and Orlando
Thunder in the World League in Montreal, as a matter of fact, at that time.
Well, Simmons under pressure again and unloads deep downfield, and open is Eddie Britton, but he was out of bounds.
You know, you go back to that point and you look at these two teams on offense. They're quite similar with their offensive lines. They both have great offensive lines. They've been intact for the most part this season. They do a good job of protecting both of their quarterbacks. Tracy Ham has the edge in mobility and CFL experience, but as pure passing, David Archer would get the nod there.
May have a lot to do with how San Antonio can handle Mike Pringle next week.
That's going to be a big key. The speed of the Baltimore defense, the great special team play they have with Miller, Werter, and Wright, tops in the CFL in those categories. You know, it's going to be a great game, and I'm really looking forward to that contest next Sunday in Baltimore.
Well, there it is. 2 o'clock Eastern next Sunday, the first of another doubleheader. It'll be final Sunday. The San Antonio Texans and the Baltimore Stallions.
You know, when you look at San Antonio's defense this afternoon, they did a good job of containing Simmons, who rushed for 136 yards on him last week. But facing Mike Pringle is a different story. Mike had a big game, but people forget that one of those runs was an 80-plus yard run, and he only ended up with 125 versus this defense. So they have the personnel that will match up well against Baltimore's running game on San Antonio's defense.
Baltimore shut down Winnipeg's running game yesterday. Will San Antonio be able to run against Baltimore? That's Judd Garrett in. The backup running backs getting some reps like Jimmy Kemp. 3 minutes to go. And 52-9 Texans. Looks like a light snow falling in the Alberta capital. Commonwealth Stadium will be going there following this game for the North semifinal between the BC Lions and the Edmonton Eskimos. And if the snow's falling, it means playoff football in Alberta.
It's been an illustrious history of memorable games played there in Commonwealth Stadium throughout the 80s and the 90s. The Eskimos have constantly been involved in the CFL playoffs. They've been one of the cornerstones that you had to go through, and looking for an outstanding game there this afternoon.
And the Lions have had some success over recent years at Commonwealth Stadium. Here into the final 3 minutes, and Judd Garrett on the move again, breaks this one into the secondary before Strode pushes him out of bounds at the 48 of Birmingham.
Judd Garrett played the final 8 games last season with the Las Vegas Posse. He actually signed back in the summer with Birmingham and was on their practice roster, and when a rash of injuries hit San Antonio, they were able to scoop him up, and now he's getting some playing time.
19 yards on that carry. Well, you go back to the final regular season game last year. Baltimore went into Sacramento at the time, and the Gold Miners were not going to make the playoffs, but they cost Baltimore first place and home field in the South Final, or the East Final last year.
And they had a rash of injuries in that game because Mike Pringle missed the first round playoff game. They have a pretty tenacious defense down there for San Antonio. They actually, and as mentioned earlier, they finished 4th in the league this year in team defense, so it's not a pushover opponent.
Now the clock running now, 2:10 to go, and no signal of surrender from the Birmingham bench, but it has been a very thorough trouncing provided by the Texans this afternoon.
No, I'm still waiting on you to break into your rendition to turn out the lights. Party's over.
Like that sign, the party is over.
Well, it's been over for a long time for Birmingham. It's just a matter of the clock running out. The frustration of a Matt Dunnigan once again missing a playoff game goes back to 1993, the last time when Winnipeg was in the playoffs and he was injured. He had the Achilles injury and he missed the playoff run that year, and they lost that Grey Cup to Edmonton in Calgary. A very memorable game when John Fleming kicked 6 field goals in that game and won the most outstanding Canadian. You know, with Edmonton, didn't he?
Here, Jack. He did. You know, the party may have been over when Dunnigan went down in Edmonton a few weeks ago, because he had a brilliant year, maybe as good a season as Matt Dunnigan's ever had.
You know, he's gotten better statistically as he's gotten older, but he's been more susceptible to injuries also, and that's always been a question mark in his career, and you hate to see any great player constantly hampered by injuries, but it is plagues Matt's career.
Tough luck this year, started in camp with a broken finger and then finishes the year with a broken knuckle. And Fred Childress and Hurley Brown having some words.
If I'm Hurley, I'm backing away from Fred. I'm letting him have that. He can have his space. He's one big man. And Klingler coming in. I really don't understand why you want to put Klingler in with 1:23 to go, but hey, we're not coaches.
Yeah, he might be wondering why it wasn't a little sooner on a day like this, but let's see what Jimmy Klingler can do. Another one of the stars out of the Houston system that ran the run and shoot at the University of Houston. Not as mobile, and is able to shake the first sack attempt before he does go down. And it was James King who had the first crack at him.
Well, you got to understand when you're playing right now and you bring in a quarterback who's not mobile, San Antonio's just going to pin back the edge. It's like the wild dogs on a hunt and they're smelling fresh meat. They're going to eat him up.
Last home game for San Antonio this year, and they provided the fans with an impressive effort as we approach the final minute. And Klingler airing it out, and that one too far for Eddie Britton down the far sidelines. A lot of questions still to be answered too in the offseason. San Antonio's had a fine year, but Birmingham started off pretty good attendance-wise, and then things really tailed off. Jack Pardee has this franchise in solid shape on the field, but where it's going to be off the field remains to be seen.
Well, that's all you can ask from a coaching staff and the players is to put a winner on the field. You know, you really can't control what the fans are going to do. They're kind of finicky down here in the southern part of the U.S., but they've had a fine year of team production in San Antonio and Birmingham.
Will Height steps out of bounds, 47 seconds left.
You know, when you look at this game this afternoon, Chris, you really have to look at the defensive performance of San Antonio. You see the points on the scoreboard, but 31 of those points came off of defensive turnovers, and they gave the offense great field position off of those turnovers, and David Archer and Jimmy Kemp had the presence to be able to come out and direct the offense into the end zone. So you really have to take your hat off to the San Antonio defense because they held this Birmingham offense in check all afternoon and gave their offense great field position.
I think that's what the fans here just did. Took their hats off, gave the defense a standing O. And now the final drive of this football game, 47 seconds left. And again, Judd Garrett, the ball carrier.
34, Judd Garrett.
Akaba Delaney, the tackle, and some short fuses right now on the field.
He should have been playing with that type of emotion in the first half, and he wouldn't be on the short end of a 52-9 score. Possibly it might be a little closer than what it is at this point. And Kay just took the ice bath.
Well, Mark Stock had quite a day. And George Black's got more penalties to sort out.
Foul, Birmingham, number 91, unnecessary roughness, first down.
Angelo Snipes called that time.
Canadian Tire has guaranteed low prices every day on MotoMaster batteries, so you can get one whenever you need one, and you won't get left out in the cold.
Kay Stevenson was very sincere when he said the 4 playoff games this weekend, we have the toughest first-round opponent.
Well, I think that he served notice to the rest of the league and the Baltimore Stallions next week that they're going to be a very formidable opponent also in the rest of the playoffs, and they're going to be a big part of the decision who's going to go to the Grey Cup.
Here's Heath Sherman, powerful runner inside the 35. Sherman's had a good day. Kittrick Taylor slow to get up, and this is not the time you want to lose anybody with a big game against Baltimore next week.
Well, especially one of the receivers, because they have a lot of balance in that receiving core, and Kittrick Taylor they felt was developing and coming on and picking up the scheme, and they would hate to lose him going in to face Baltimore next week.
Still to come today, the Edmonton Eskimos playing host to the BC Lions in the other North Semi, and a shot at the Calgary Stampeders in next week's North Final at McMahon Stadium as Commonwealth starts to fill up on a chilly, snowy day. Well, they are not here in large numbers. As we were warned, a noon start on a Sunday in the Southern Bible Belt, and on NFL Sunday, they weren't going to fill the Alamo Dome, but the core fans here, for the most part, have enjoyed it. This gentleman wasn't.
Well, the fans that showed up this afternoon were treated to a very memorable game and a huge offensive outburst. The offensive line, I mean, they did a wonderful job this afternoon for San Antonio. Smith, Muhlenberg, Kieslick, Estate, and Stevenson opening the holes for the running back, providing the protection for David Archer. And you have to be praising those guys up front because they got the job done when called upon.
And a carry for Judd Garrett. And he's down to the 27 and has a first down. And they just announced final home game of the year here. This team will go to Baltimore next week, and David Archer wants a trip to Regina in 2 weeks' time.
Well, whoever shows up, Baltimore or San Antonio, I think we're going to be treated to one memorable Grey Cup.
Final play, and Jimmy Kemp puts the knee down to end it. It will go in the books as a 52-9 trouncing, and San Antonio is going to Baltimore for the South Final next week. Kay Stevenson will lock horns again with Don Matthews.
Well, I think it's the game, and it's the proper game. The two best records in the South meeting for the South Division Championship, and it's going to be a memorable game next week in Memorial Stadium. The San Antonio Texans with an opportunity to go to the Grey Cup. Baltimore Stallions looking for an opportunity to repeat the trip back to the Grey Cup. Let's go downstairs and see Mark.
All right, thanks, James. I'm with David Archer. Dave, command performance, 7 touchdowns in this playoff game, tying a CFL record. You got to be pretty happy.
Yeah, we came out and played hard. We had there was a lot of focus on the ball club. We've had an ongoing thing with these guys all year long, and we've gotten one step closer to what we wanted to do. We're nowhere near where we want to be, but we get to go to Baltimore next weekend, and we're looking forward to that.
Post game last week, you win by 6 and 90 points are scored, but no contest here. In fact, the game was over at the half. Was it the adjustments you made all week?
Well, I think the defense set the tone. I think the defense said that that wasn't going to happen to them again next week. They didn't play well last weekend, and they came out and they really got after Kelvin and really shut their offense down.
What about the arm? I know you looked like you had some pain. You told me you took a shot there, and we've got some pictures here of when you hit your hand on the helmet. It looked like Snipe's helmet.
Well, Hans is around the ball all the time. I mean, he's one of those kind of guys you expect in your face most of the night, and he was there. He's a great ball player, and my hat's off to him. He's a great player. But, I mean, this time of year, you're going to get beat around. This is playoff time, and you're going to get hit. You're playing the best, so you're going to get hit. I just got to step up and make the next play.
Big change appeared to take place early in the game after Simmons was picked off on his first pass of the second series. You come back with that 75-yard bomb to Mark Strock.
Yeah, Mark does a great job of reading coverage. We just had him on an option route there. He read that the safety was off. He broke it inside and was able to stick him with the ball. And then he's underestimated what he does after he catches the football. The guy's about a 4.3 sprinter, and he ran away from his coverage.
Baltimore, you lost to them twice this year. Can you play any better in the playoffs? You're going to the division final for the first time.
Well, we're where we wanted to be. We get a chance at Baltimore again. We played them early in the year, 2 of the first 3 ball games, and didn't go our way. But I know they know we're coming, and we know we're coming, so it should be a good one.
All right, we'll see you in Baltimore next weekend.
Looking forward to it.
Congratulations, Dave. David Archer, we're also joined here by one of the top defensive players of this game, Grady Cavness. Grady, here's one of your interceptions. You had 2 on the night. Tell us about it.
I was just in the right place at the right time. We're reading little things. We practice real hard because, these wide receivers are real good. So we had to really practice hard and study our film. That's how we came up with the interception.
That was your first pick early in the game. We just talked about it with David Archer. Do you think it maybe intimidated the young quarterback Simmons?
No, I think he's a real good player. I think he has a lot of confidence. I think that we just, like I said before, was mentally ready, and we came out to play.
What can you say about your defense? Rated 4th in the league this year. By our count, 31 points were scored today on account of turnovers.
We can get better because Baltimore is a better team than we just played, so I hope we can move up to number 1 during these playoffs.
Now, you lost twice to Baltimore this year. Are you a better team now? Will you give them a better run in the playoffs?
I think so. I think we're, like I said, everybody's physically basically the same. I think we need to go back, study some film, and get ready to play these a real good team, Baltimore.
What do you think about this Canadian game?
Fast pace.
It sure is. Congratulations on a fine effort, Grady. Thank you. What an effort by the Texans today as they wipe out the Birmingham Barracudas. The final score, 52-9, and there's the hero of the day, David Archer, taking time with his public. The final home game here this year in the Alamo Dome. It's on to Baltimore and the division final. Back after this.
The CFL on CBC. Brought to you by Bell Canada, proud sponsor of the Bell Canadian Open.
They have cleared the Alamo Dome, and now it's on to Baltimore. There you see the division final for the South, set for next Sunday at 2 Eastern. The Texans versus the Stallions, who beat the Texans twice this year. Now it's on to Edmonton for the second half of our playoff doubleheader, the Lions and the Eskimos. So long from the Alamo Dome.
Commonwealth Stadium is set for the most anticipated of all CFL rematches. The last time these teams met, the Eskimos survived a last-second charge with a late touchdown in overtime. And now Benny is ready to deliver the goods. Kerwin would like nothing better than to ring up another win. Danny Mack would like nothing better than to repeat last year's upset. The defense will have to make its point. Oh yes, it doesn't get much better than this. Only one division finalist remains to be decided, and this is where the decision will be rendered at Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton. The Eskimos are one of the hottest teams in the CFL. The BC Lions are a lot cooler, but they remember well their Grey Cup miracle of a year ago, and this is where it started. Hello and welcome to Edmonton for the North Division semifinal between the Eskimos and the Lions, and we're just in time to hear the national anthem.